All right, everybody, welcome to Ten-Four Tavern. It is 7:05 on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, the year of our Lord. Peter, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, brother. Got a big glass of wine here, a big giant bottle of wine next to it. I got my Bronx Detective shirt on.
Oh,
Chief of Bronx Detectives and then Chief of Detectives as a guest. How can I be doing any better, brother?
all right. Well, Chief Bobby Boyce, welcome to the Ten-Four Tavern, sir.
Tom, great to be here. Really, Pete, same thing. Thanks so much for having me on. Always like talking to the police department and especially the NYPD.
Yeah, I just want to see if you get as emotional as Mike Marino did, because he said he cried after doing some police-related podcasts. He said he missed the troops. So we'll see if we can stir up some good memories tonight for you. I know you got some great stories, and I think the audience is really geared up to listen to not only your career, but all the things you did and then what you're doing after that with the NY Homicide Oxygen Channel true crime show. It's just pretty awesome. You got the ABC Consulting, one of the real good voices for law enforcement and those sides of things. So we're going to get into it tonight a little bit. But before we do that, because it is the Ten-Four Tavern, Pete, you said something about wine?
Yeah, I took my wife out for her birthday. She turned 57, which she's actually only 27. And we got a big giant bottle of wine that they gave us at the restaurant. So I decided to finish it before it goes bad. It's actually quite good, from Cooper's Hawk.
All right. And Bobby, so you're the old soul here, right? Drinking a Tom Collins?
Well, I was a bartender for many years before I came on the job.
I knew that. Yes.
And so I know my way around a bar, but I have a gin mill too. So it's a gin sour, and I've always liked them, and so I thought it was appropriate tonight.
Yep. Well, I've got Responder Bourbon, which I had on a previous episode as well. But the reason why I brought it back is because I was just at IACP out in Denver, and Chief Kevin Barrett of Terre Haute, Indiana, is the owner and partner and founder of Responder Bourbon. He's going to do a line, red label for firemen, blue label for police, and a black label for the military. So if you ever find Responder Bourbon out there, that's an unpaid solicitation. He's a great guy. Sent me a bottle of the red. I said, "What are you doing sending me to firemen? Like, you got to be kidding me." He's like, "The blue line's not out yet. It's coming next week." So we'll get that going. But Responder Bourbon, if you see it out there, support. 5% of all the sales go to first responders.
Where is Kevin the Chief?
Terre Haute, Indiana.
Because I thought all bourbon came from Kentucky, but we won't.
Well, it's a Kentucky-made bourbon that he has and it's the company's out of there. So that's a important point. But anyway, Bobby, let's do it. What's going on? Where'd you grow up? How'd you go through things and end up being a policeman?
So I grew up in Long Island, Bethpage, Long Island. I came on the job late, 1983. Before that, I started, when I was 20 years old, I started working clubs. I was a doorman in a club. And obviously at one time I was much bigger than I am now. And I loved it. I became a bartender. So those things taught me a couple things: how to handle myself, number one. And the second thing was how to communicate. I know it sounds silly being working in a bar, but most guys will tell you if they did it, you pick up those things. You know how to handle people, how to handle situations, mitigate problems. So I came on in January of '83, big class. And I hit the ground. After that, I went to the academy. I went to NSU2 in Lower Manhattan. And then I went to the 2-4, where a year later met a young man named Brian Hunt, and other people. So I had a great time. And then when I was a year on patrol, crack had hit the city like a thud. And next thing I know, I was in a SNU team there. And we were locking up everything that moved, especially in the upper part of the 2-4 towards Harlem. With that, after 3 years there, into Manhattan South Narcotics. And worked for Bill Ali, who was my lieutenant at the time and would later become the chief of detectives. And then when Eddie Byrne was murdered, I went out to Queens and worked in Queens Narcotics and did my thing out there. Got made sergeant out of Queens Narco and into the 7-3 precinct. First, I did 6 months in the 9-4. And then at that time, they move you, which is a smart move. They should pick it up again. Making mistakes the first time, then move you into the 7-3 for 4 years. And when I was there, I was the crime sergeant for all 4 years. So I loved it there. I had a great team, great people. Every day was just adrenaline. You talk about Mike Marino. Mike was the sergeant there as well. We just had great people. And I never wanted to leave, to be honest with you. But 4 years is 4 years. That's the cap on a crime sergeant. And then I found myself in the 7-5 squad, not too long after that. And again, started learning about the detective business through Joey Herbert. And that's me, the tall guy up front on the right, with his hand on his back. So that's January '83 class, and then into the 7-5 squad, and started my sojourn into the detective business, and never really left me, even though I took precincts and things like that. I always loved it.
Yeah. Well, so what like, let's go back to that picture again. What year, what class was that, Bobby?
January '83. It's 8336 is the name of the thing.
Right.
And again, I was up front there on how I made my way that way, because it was, and I'm still friends with some people there. I don't know if you know Bob Mladnich. I don't know if you know Bobby or not. Second grader. And he's written 4 books. This guy's a genius. We're still tight. We go out to dinner all the time. So you still stay tight with a lot of those people there. So we had a great time coming out of
Hey,
there.
Tommy, isn't that your workout outfit that the guy's wearing up front? That guy steal your look?
I still use the same one. Yeah,
Oh,
it's kind of weird that you remember that,
Yeah, I saw it the other day. That's why it brought back memories.
But listen, everybody, I just got to say that it is the Ten-Four Tavern, and you never know who's going to drop into a tavern and show up. So, interestingly enough, we're down at the end of the bar, kind of having this conversation by ourselves with everybody listening in. But I think I should bring somebody in. So, everybody, I would like you all to meet Detective First Grade Retired NYPD George Farback, a good old friend of Chief Bobby Boyce. George, welcome to the Ten-Four Tavern.
Thank you, Tommy. Chief, how we doing?
Good. And it was just talking about January '83. Myself
Yes.
and George were in the same gym class.
That's
So,
where the boss and I met in the academy.
Way back.
Prior to him, obviously prior to him being my squad commander, but yes.
Similar careers.
So, George, here's your chance. Let's hear it. What was it like working for the chief?
You know what? I have to say it was pretty good. And, the interesting thing is when the chief left the 7-9 and kind of did his patrol thing, I used to have to go to the 6-7 all the time because DBB was there. And the chief was he was the CO at the time. And I would always stop in to see him. We've been friends for, obviously, since the academy. But I never thinking that he could possibly become the chief of detectives. But we maintained our friendship through all the patrol stuff and everything. And then when he was up in the Bronx, my part of the union was Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. But we always talked. We always talked about DEA stuff. And he was always asking my opinion, which I appreciate. But yeah, we've maintained a friendship over, 45 years. And it's a friendship that I definitely appreciate and like having.
What do you drink at Pete? Show up at the tavern. You can't be empty-handed. George,
you told me to bring my Dewars, which is spelled DEWARS.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And like I said, some of the classier joints I go into now don't have Dewars, but I figured at the Ten-Four Tavern I could get a Dewars and soda. So yeah.
So when Bobby was in the 7-9, Bobby, just so everyone knows, Chief Boyce was the squad commander in the 7-9. I think I want to hear the story on how you went from the 8-8 to the 7-9. I think it's a pretty good Harkin story. I think that's kind of with a lot of about what we talk about here, leadership and making tough decisions, that for the best of the community and the best for the job. But yeah, Bobby was the lieutenant there, got promoted to captain. There was a gap. A couple of sergeants held the fort down in the 7-9 squad. And when I got there, Bobby was this gentleman, called me up and said, let me walk you through everybody there, kind of prep you for what you're about to take on in the 7-9 squad. It's a beast, but you have some great detectives there, and let me walk you through that, and gave me some real sage advice on how to run that place. And I spent the next 1,856 days there. And as I told the guys in the studio backstage, it was the best 5 years I had on the job for sure. So thank you, Bobby, for doing that. Thank you, George, for being the unofficial leader of the squad in regard to your leadership as a first grader there and working your way up to being a first grader. And that mentorship meant a lot to me too, because you got to know what the guys are thinking and what the troops are thinking and how they're feeling and about what's going on too. So it wasn't an easy job, but we all made it through. And I watched some incredible work, which I think the chief is going to get into, not only in the 7-9 in Brooklyn North, but job wide from the chief of detectives perspective. It's going to be pretty amazing. So with that, it is his show, George. So any final thoughts, and then we'll let you go back to your drinking buddies.
Well, my thought with this is when you're in one of those busier houses, I think the relationship between the supervisors and the detectives is much stronger because you're in a busier house. The supervisors rely on you, and I think they're in more of a protective mode of their detectives. So I think that adds to, I don't want to take anything away from Queens or Manhattan South, but, I think you're in the 7-9, you're in the 7-5, you're in the 4-6, you're in, these heavy houses. I think the relationship between the bosses is different. It's better, I think. I think you rely on each other for more things than you would normally rely on. And you know what? I work for both of you because I get yelled at if I try and pick my best squad commander, Tommy. So I put you all in the top 5. I got to throw you in there. I got to obviously throw the chief in there. I got to show Seamus in there. I got to throw Chuck Dowd in there. So, but I'm not saying who was number 1 because then I'll get shit. So, but yes, the relationship I think in the heavier squads, lieutenants, sergeants, is different than it is in the quieter places.
Yeah. Well, thanks, George. All right, like I said, George, maybe we'll see you another time. Pop it into the Ten-Four Tavern.
Absolutely, Tommy. Thank you for the invite, boss. Congratulations on being in the Ten-Four Tavern. And yes, absolutely. Stay in touch, boss. Give Terry my best. I'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk, George.
Take care, George.
Always, thank you.
So I thought that'd be nice. He thinks the world of you, Chief. So came here for a toast. So,
well, Tommy, that moment in time you catch it, and you remember how good it was.
Yep.
And you're just so crazy working that you didn't realize that time how good it was. But I did. I had great bosses there. John McGee, John Sullivan, Kevin York. You never do anything alone, and they were like right by my side. We had a great time.
So I want to hear about so you were in the 8-8 squad with Brian McNulty, right?
Yes.
And I thought you were having a pretty good time. A little bit of crime. Things were happening.
When the place blew, the place blew. It's as simple as that. It was one of those commands. And you had the, Whitman. Usually you lived and died with that place.
Yeah.
So I had passed the captain's test, and I was on a backstroke, to be honest with you. And I thought, all right, I'm going to stay here. And I was getting my shots at ComStat. So you get your reputation going at ComStat, take whenever they brought you up. And then 7-9 went down and had a hard day. Joey Herbert was running the squad at the time, and he was out, and so was John McGee out, and so I felt bad for Phil who came in, and if you don't do ComStat every week, it's just not the same as doing it. And they clobbered, and Judy was out too. So it was just one of those bad things. And the next thing I know, I said, "Shit, I'm going to 7-9." And I said, "Okay." I was that. And so Chief called me the other day, and he called me the next day and said, "Come on down and talk to me." So I went down and talked to the chief. And he says, "Bobby, go to the 7-9." And I said, "Well, Chief, can I take the weekend and think about this?" It was a Friday. And he goes, "Yeah, take the weekend. Be there Monday morning." And I tell you, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because they really got a great shit into the thing. And
that's hilarious. Yeah.
And it was just, and it changed my life because it certainly changed my career trajectory. I was in the big time now, and I was a sergeant at 7-5 squad, so I knew a busy house. It wasn't an issue for me. 7-3 crime sergeant. So these things I knew the North very well. And of course, Joe Espo was the CO. And so he took me back when I made captain, brought me back to the borough.
Yeah. So I think we got Mikey G said he was your favorite school. He was your favorite school sergeant in 6-7. Is that right?
Who?
Right.
Love Mike. He just walked up. I think he came on with me in January '83, as George did, and he just retired a couple months ago. We went to his walkout. It was a good time.
Yeah. So just everybody, Mike G. After working with Chief Boyce, I was the king of investigating missings before the squad got there. You think you gathered all the info, and you'd always have that one more question you couldn't answer. So thanks, Mike G, for the comments. So yeah, so Bobby, so you made captain coming out there. You left the keys for the shop for 7-9. Where'd you go as a captain?
First one, they sent me out to Queens for about 3 months. It wasn't my cup of tea. And Espo got me back to the 7.5. It was the XO 7.5 when Tony Izzo was the CO there. And so it was land I knew very well. And so it was no problem with that. And I learned a lot from Anthony because I haven't done patrol in many, many years. So it worked out real well that I was there. And then Espo pushed me along. He moved me over to the 8-3 as the acting CEO for 4 months, into the 9-0 before I got my own shot. And I went up to the 4-0 precinct in the Bronx from there. And that was 2000, September of 2000.
That was as an XO?
CO.
Oh, you were CO to 4-0?
CO to 4-0 precinct, yes.
Yeah, so I think the whole time you went up to the Bronx, I lost track of that. And then from there you had what commands? And then you made your way back to gangs, I think, right?
Sure. From there I went to 6-7.
Right.
And I was there longer than I was in high school, over 4 years. And I tell you, it's the best place I ever worked. I loved the 6-7. Still do. All those cops were still tight. And it gets a bad reputation because there's a lot of good people who live there. And you get to know them as well. So in that command, I really became this community guy that I had never been in the 4-0 because 4-0 was so crazy. Very few people would show up to the to the precinct councils, but in the 6-7, there was like 100, 150 people there. They really took the community seriously. So I loved it there. The cops are great there. We had a lot of tragedy there with Bobby and Pat being murdered and others. So it was a hard time, but I tell you, I really relished my time there. And after 4 years there, I went to the CO of the gang division, and I worked there for 4 years at the Brooklyn Army Terminal, citywide gang division. Yeah. And did 4 years there. Got made chief there. Got my star there. And then in 2010, when I shot me up to the Bronx Detectives, there was a kind of this Bronx Detectives was one of those places. It was always a crisis. It was always they didn't have enough detectives to answer the cases. It was just, and they were great detectives there. They really were. And I say, Pete, I have to say this as George is gone now. I think the world of Bronx homicide, the world. Because they were doing things that nobody else was doing in the city back then. They were solving their crimes. They hung on to their cases. No matter what the year, they would go back and make a call from 5 years earlier. It was just one of those squads. And all I had to do was the lieutenant there. And he just had this active mind. And it was tug of war with Sean all the time. You know that, tug of war to get information from him. But he was really, really exceptional guy. And so I learned a lot from being there. And then at that point, they did ECMS, which, Tommy, I don't know if you were around for ECMS or not. Electronic.
They were just rolling that out right when I left. Yeah.
So if you're a boss and you have that, that's the best friend you've ever had in your life. You can see your whole case. You were prepared to comp set like that. And so it really helped a lot. And so I got a good hold of that. And I was there for 3.5 years. And then I got the call to take over Manhattan Detectives. And had that for about 18 months. It was fleeting, but I tell you what, it's a pretty good job. I will say that, being chief. And it was both Manhattans. And now they have a split. Manhattan's north and south. So I had all the island at the time. And so very, very fortunate to go there and get a fresh look on life in that place. And then 2014, the new mayor came in, and the new commissioner, Bill Bratton, came in, and he hired me as chief of detectives.
So talk about that, like leading up to that, Bobby. Like, do you know things are starting to happen? Like, how long in advance do you know the rumors are starting to talk? They're starting to talk to you. Like, walk us through that process, because I'm sure there's a lot of people all vying for it, and who's trying to position themselves, and how does that all play out?
Yeah, it was kind of weird because the chief of the department at the time was Phil Banks, and we were friends from our days in Brooklyn North, and so I knew Phil pretty well, and he would call me back and forth and say, "You're in the lead for now, but you're falling back." It was pretty funny stuff, actually. And everybody had to do a resume for the boss, for Commissioner Bratton, and they said he wanted detail, extreme detail, what you did. So mine was like 4 or 5 pages. I had a lot of stuff. I said, he's never going to read any of this because it's just too much. Right. So then you start hearing different things, and then I get a call from John Miller, and he says, and at the time was Phil Plesky was still chief of detectives, but he was on his way out, right? And this is John right here, as well known, as world known. And he calls me, goes, "Let's go to dinner." So we go to dinner, La Campagnola, up in the Upper East Side, and we start talking the job. and having a great time. And great meal, a couple of libations. It was all good. And he says, let's go meet the boss, Bill Brad. And we just go down to Neary's, if you're familiar with that place, also on the Upper East Side. And there's Commissioner Bratton sitting in the back, as sober as a judge, just looking at me like this. And he asked me some direct questions, and I answered him. He goes, can you handle press conferences? I said, yes, I've done many. He goes, how do I know that? I said, well, I've been doing comp staff for 22 years. Press conferences is a walk on a beach compared to comp staff. So he said, okay. So he gave me the job. I told him I never disappoint him, and I never did. And we went from there. I did, and I told him right then. I said, "You got me for 4 years, boss." And I turned 63. I'm out. And so he goes, "That's fine. I'm good with that." And that was it. Yeah. Great job.
And so I remember talking to you when you got the job. I was on I was getting off a plane, and I guess I had texted you and just congratulated. And I said it then, and I believe it to be true. And I had a conversation with somebody at IACP this week when I was talking to the chief of detectives of LAPD. His name is Alan Hamilton, a real nice guy. I know him since he was a lieutenant. And I said, the best job in law enforcement in the country, in my opinion, is the chief of detectives of the New York City Police Department. You can have PC all day long for as far as I care. I would want to be the chief of detectives of the New York City Police Department. And I told Alan Hamilton, chief of detectives, LAPD is probably up there, but it's not that.
No, it's you're in charge of all investigating all traditional crime in New York City. And, New York is an international city. And so you got to be on top of every little thing.
Yep.
As simple as that. I had that in 2016. He merged OCCB into the Detective Bureau. So I picked up another 2,000 detectives there. No,
that's what I wanted to ask. So, how much of a bear was that to live through that merger? Because I know OCCB was a big animal. They had the Firearms Investigations Unit under them. That must have been a lot of moving parts.
Pete, we grew to 8 detective boroughs and 10 detective divisions. It's a big enchilada. And I had it staring at me every day because I had it on my far wall, everybody who was the bosses and all kinds of things, like we have in headquarters. And so I had to bring in narcotics. And it was we really redid all the investigative disciplines in the department that we've been doing for years. So I never, by the way, let me make it perfectly clear. I never asked for this. I never asked for, for narcotics. But they were going to send my detective squads to patrol command. And I fought like the devil. And there was a all-in. And what an all-in is, all the chiefs, all the captains and above go to one location. There's about 700, 800 people there. Captains, inspectors, deputy inspectors, 1-star, 2-star, and 3-stars there. And they started asking me. And Jimmy O'Neill was the chief of department at the time. And I'm pushing back. I'm saying, this is stupid, Jimmy. And we were in the academy together. He was in my gym class as well. He was with George. He was like the next company over. So I knew Jim. And he had the 4.4 and I had the 6.7. So we knew each other. I said, this is a mistake. I said, the world is not the same. I said, you can't put investigators with patrol. They're both honorable people. They both do honorable jobs, but they're not the same. I said, so he goes, okay, so if you think that, because they were all doing that, get up and say it. And I did. I had 10 minutes to prepare a speech, which I did. And my drivers, I don't know if you know Bobby and Steve, the guys who drove me at the time.
Yeah, of course.
So they were Steve was in my crime team. In the 7-3, I brought him with me. His partner was Bob.
Well, let's give it, sorry to interrupt. Let's give him a shout out. Anyone in Brooklyn North, Hunter and Shulman. Where one is, the other is. The other is the other. I mean, it was never Hunter. It was never Shulman. It was always Hunter and Shulman. So you want to give him a shout out?
2 of the best detectives that ever came on the job.
Yeah.
And they didn't hold back. The strips home from the city. I tell you what, the next thing I knew, the second I was home, I couldn't wait down the car. These guys were maniacs. They just tell me what they thought, and I wanted them to do it. I wanted to hear everything from them. I wanted their opinions. It was important to me. That's why I brought them on. Also, loyalty to Stevie. And Bobby was a PSA 2 guy, so I knew who he was. He can't miss that mustache anywhere. So I said, "Come on, both these, come on." So that was part of my team. I brought guys from the Bronx. I think, Pete, Steve Mancini. He was my sergeant there. I brought Stevie with me, Jimmy O'Sullivan. So I brought this team, and I am a big, firm believer in building a team. And that's the only way you're going to get these big jobs done. And so we did. We started building things out. We started making these divisions. And some of the divisions really paid dividends. The Gun and Violence Suppression Division, which was this mix of gang people, detectives, white shields, all under one house going after the gangs. We did open up, and part of the thing with the Detective Bureau was I went into Commissioner Braden. I said I would like to open some task forces, which we never did. In prior years, I said, he goes, Bob, you can open as many as you want. You're the chief of detectives. Cool.
Nice.
So we started opening them up, and they've been successful everywhere. I think Pete, you can bear me out on this. These task forces with feds have just paid dividends to the city beyond belief. We can go into talk about an hour on that alone. So we started Safe Streets with the FBI, cybercrime with the FBI, human trafficking with the FBI, Sparta team, which nobody knows what it is, was one of
The
most
robbery team, legends, and ATF, they're legends.
We took down, in 1 year, we specifically targeted under the Hobbs Act, and you know well, and using that to do home invasions and commercial robs. And what does that mean? That you do a home invasion, do a commercial rob, we get you a pattern, and we send you out west to places like Minnesota and Idaho, where you don't come back and you're severed from your gang and your crew. No one comes out to visit you. You get no visits from your wife and girlfriends, nothing. And plus, you do it an extra 10 years. So this was the thought process I had. Because I had gang division. We'd send up guys upstate. They still call hits from Greenhaven, Attica, all the places to work. So that has to change. That was a dynamic change in the police department. And that was a lot of our thinking at the time. And I got to give you, Mike Baldazano was my XO, and Brian Burke was my XO. Excellent people who helped me put together a great team. Mike's still there. Mike Baldazano is still in the two-star chief of the Detective Bureau and holding that down. Because I tell you what, the Bureau still does a lot of good work. Still does good work.
No,
So go ahead.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. Like when we used to charge the folks, even with the lower level trigger lock stuff, when we would drive past the Bronx courthouse, because like I said, when I started that, I was still a Bronx detective. So I had a detective shield. I didn't have ATF creds at that point. So when we'd lock them up, they'd think they were going to the Bronx courthouse. And when we would drive past, they'd start getting a little jittery. Then we'd get across the 3rd Avenue Bridge, start going down the FDR Drive, and reality would start to set in. Some really hardcore guys, man, would start throwing up in the car, crying, because they didn't want to go to Sandstone, Minnesota, or Mariana, Florida, or Lompoc, California. They knew what was coming, Yeah,
no, they didn't. And they really, you see, you're right about that. Hardcore guys just saying, "Oh my God, I'm done. I'm done." And so, that taking that to Manhattan cybercrime, FBI cybercrime, like I said, the human trafficking was just unbelievable what they were doing. And also we brought back the Joint Bank Robbery Task Force. Special victims we blew up, hate crimes we blew up. There just wasn't enough detectives. So we really added to a lot of these people. So if you were a detective back then, you really wanted to come on and do it and make a difference in the city of New York, those were the places to be. We really did well with that. And just the identifying that leadership, because not everybody can work in the Detective Bureau. It's as simple as that. And so I wanted my chiefs to talk to everybody they come in and make sure they're savvy and make sure they're grounded in making arrests. That's what we do. We put bad guys in jail. And so I did all my interviews for the Bronx and Manhattan, and I wanted my chiefs to do it as well. So, and they did. And so we wanted to bring in the best people who understood and reward them. More importantly than anything was reward them with grade when they deserved it. And we went and did that. And I thought I was never so proud of it. I'll talk about a couple of things that really bothered me. But one of the best things that happened to me was we brought the homicide number down under 300 in 2017, my last full year. And
citywide?
What's that?
Citywide?
Citywide.
Wow.
Under 800 shootings. And we did it by gang takedowns. It was the number one motive on shootings, right? And Pete's right up your alley. And so, that was the number one motive. We took on 115 gang cases in 18 months, which crushed the city. And all of a sudden, again, all the DAs got into it, and plus the feds. Eastern District, all of a sudden they're on board too, and we're knocking it down. So again, it's done by a lot of work by a lot of people. I thought that was the one thing that I left the city with, a real hard-working partnership with federal agents. And ATF, DEA, like I said, they were tremendous partners as well. HSI, you name it, we had a task force going with a lot of them. And the mayor at the time was usurping a lot of our abilities, our tools. He was forgiving warrants on ROWs, on an open warrant over 10 years. He was forgiving that. And that's leverage for a detective. You had to have something when you walk into a room. And so this particular photo here was the murder of Paulie Tuasolo in the Bronx. And I was explaining to him exactly what we had there, which was an ambush murder. And he was a sergeant in 4-3. He shot and killed a hero cop. And so I was explaining to the mayor about that too. And that's going into the other thing. Nothing scared me more than not being able to give the family of a killed police officer a piece of justice, that we locked up the guy. And that's really one takeaway. I had 7 officers murdered in the line of duty when I was chief of detectives. And I'll tell you, I remember every day, every night, everything that we did. 2 assassinations, 2 ambushes, 1 fire, arson fire, and one shootout up in Upper West Side, Randolph Holder. So those cases really are important to me.
Yeah, so Bobby, I think a couple of things. I want to talk about the 300 and the 800 numbers that you threw out there, but I would like to. You asked me if we wanted to talk about the line of duty deaths. I think from the chief of detectives perspective, not the executive perspective, Ron and Rob, but the chief of detectives, what these meant, because we all always worried about catching those in the squad. I, in the 7-9, never had one, thank God. Responded to others in backup situations, but never had to carry that load. So from a squad commander's perspective, and then the chief of detectives, I think we should acknowledge the 7 of those, and we can talk about them. I'll bring each one of them up on the screen so we can never forget, obviously, and then to hear it from you. But before we do that, if that's okay with you, are you okay with that?
I'm game for anything, Tom. It's your show.
Yeah. Okay. But the 800, 300, and I want to talk about this because when was your last year? It's 2017, 2018?
2018, when I did 4 months. My birthday was in April.
So we're at 2018 with less than 300 homicides, less than 800 shootings. We go into COVID. We go into the summer of love in 2020. We went from 2,200 murders in the early 90s to that low mark. And how does not everyone think that's the only way it should ever be? And how did we get to this place where we let a lot of, not all of it, but how did we get, not only here, because it's not just New York, it's across the country. How does all of those 27 years of real hard work and hitting those low points, which is what the goal is. And Jack Maple always said, you're not done until 0 homicides, 0 crimes. So that means you always got it. But how did we let this go?
Just to highlight what you just said, I'm 7.375 guy. You know, I worked twice in both commands. I was a sergeant and captain in the 7.5. I was a sergeant lieutenant in 7.3. The biggest year that I can recall when I was there was 94. There was 200 homicides between the 7.3 and the 7.5. It's a 13th division. Tough place to call home. But nonetheless, we did. There was 200. When I left my final year, there was 20. 20 too many. But remember, that's 10% of that number in that time. 10% in roughly about a little over 20 years. That's good hard work and success and people working really hard. You remember the grind it was? Detective's life is not easy. And I understand it. But you're out in the middle. And I remember this nights I was so tired, going home cold, 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. My body was shaking because it was so cold. I was standing at a crime scene that night. I remember it all the time. And so it was, when I think of that, if I can hang my hat on one thing, it was what we did for the city and how many lives we saved. You know, and how much the cases meant to my detectives. And I say this all the time. The detective has almost a tortured life. If you work in the street and you're really a hardcore guy or gal, they would stay in your head, your cases. There is no day off. When you're watching your kid play football, baseball, something, whatever, that case comes into your head, a little trigger, it doesn't take much. And next thing you know, you're off on a tangent thinking about what you're going to do the next day. So I think they deserve a lot of credit. I say it all the time. We have a secret weapon in the city, and it shouldn't be a secret, but it is. And that's the detectives in New York City. All of them. You see you guys, I'm not just saying Detective Bureau. They're specialty people. They're special people. And they need to be rewarded as much as they can.
Yeah.
And I think they're in great shape. Detective DEA is a great union. Scott's doing a good job. He's out there talking when he should be. So I'm happy with the state of the art. I like Joe Kenny. He's a great chief. Like I said, there's still a lot of great people there. So I think they really carry a lot of the crime fighting burden in the city. They should be rewarded.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So let me pull these up and let's kind of tell us how you were feeling when these things were happening, what was going on. Let me see if I can do this. I believe this is going to be, is this your first one as Chief of D?
That's right.
Where the arson.
You also know that Dennis's dad was a second grader in Queens Homicide, retired. All right.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Dennis's dad was a second grader in
Oh.
Queens Homicide.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, no, he came from a great family, and his son, big guy, really good cop. April 9th, 2014. I'm sitting in church on a Sunday, and my phone starts to go off. You know how you let the first number go? You call it down, the second go, and the third one. Oh God! I get up, I go in the back, I find out what happened. He went to a building, a housing on Surf Avenue, the 60, and they took him and his partner took a elevator up to the top where the floor was. It was an investigator, a fire. And as soon as they opened the door, they were completely overcome. And it killed Dennis and severely hurt his partner. And what happened was some mutt lit a couch that was in the hallway on fire and ran off. So that was Brooklyn South, 60, and that was the first one I had. And I remember, you know how information starts coming in, guys, and all of a sudden, we got a little something here, and it starts building and building. So I stayed until we had a working name. I stayed until around 9 o'clock at night. I said, "Oh, we got a name on this guy," and Marcel Dockery was his name, and it looks like he's our guy. And a kid who lived there, just an idiot. And so I went home. I looked at them I think we were doing it out of 6-1 because I didn't want the press coming in. I was doing a 6-1. I looked at the Brooklyn North South detectives guys and hard men. I said, fellas, and I walked out. By the time I got home, he gave it up, boss. They told me on tape. So that was the first one down, and that was a hard one because it shouldn't have happened. It's just a stupid fire that just killed them. So that was hard to do. The second one was Detective Ralphie Ramos and Wayne Low. This was an assassination in the 7-9 precinct. They were there on a uniform detail, and they were sitting in their radio car waiting for assignment, and a man came up behind them and assassinated them from behind.
Wait.
And that was a tough day. That was December, right before Christmas, December 20th of 2014. Same year as Dennis. And Purpose Ismail Brimsley, a psychopath, who actually had pictures of anti-police stuff from the Eric Garner decision that summer, right? And that's why he assassinated because of that. And it was funny, when I did the press conference there, I keep banging, I'm sorry. I did the press conference on that. And this is a heartbreak. I had to tell their families exactly what happened to them. That's the chief of detective's job. And so it never gets easy when you do that. And these folks were just completely overcome with grief. It was rough. And they did not die in the street. They passed at Woodhull Hospital. A big point to the families that they did not die in the street. And I think you guys know, no one dies in the street in the NYPD. Nobody, ever. That should not happen. So we made sure that happened. And turns out the perpetrator, someone waved him down and said, that's the shooter right there. And two guys from the 7-5 precinct on the same detail chased him down to the subway, and the guy ate his gun in front of him. So I took care of him. So that was a rough year, 2014. And like I said, it wasn't easy to get through. And then in 2015.
Hold on, Bobby, before you jump to the next, because I need a little bit of time to switch over to screens too. But I know exactly where I was sitting when Lou and Ramos and the news came over. I live in Virginia now at that time. I'm having breakfast. And the corner that they were at, obviously being a 7-9 guy, I probably felt that I was on that corner 1,000 times. And I would say, honestly, that's the hardest hit, first time survivors guilt hit me. Like I said, that could have been me. That could have been any one of us any time when it hits on a corner that you've spent so much time on. And then to hear that and the way that went down. So I mean, we probably all know exactly where we were on most, if not all of these cases. But this one, having been retired a couple of years and being removed, and I'm in this place in Virginia, and it's so far away from New York. This one really hit home for me too. So thanks for sharing that. So go ahead, tell me who it is, and then give me a second to pull that one up.
Sure. The next one is Brian Moore. But with what you said before, I'll develop this when you're looking. It's when you're standing in line in the uniform at the funeral. You see those kids get out of the car?
Yep.
Those are your kids still. That's what we look at. So that's why you work so hard. And they stay with you all the time. And so those are your kids getting out of the car. It's the same thing. Could have been you. And it is you, by the way, because you wear the same uniform. Brian Moore was the next one. That was in May 2nd of 2015. Again, another ambush.
Yeah, I had him, and then I got him now. Here we go.
This was a really good kid, anti-crime, rolling the 105 for perps. Knew the corner and knew and saw an individual there that was known to them as a bad guy, Demetrius Blackwell, aka Hellraiser, and drawing them in. It's just as they pull up and about to get out of the car, he takes a gun and shoots Brian point blank in the head. Then shoots at his partner Eric, just missing him by a thread, and hit the windshield, and then he runs off. Eric immediately renders aid to Brian, and we come there. This is an unbelievable story. I'm coming from Long Island. I'm actually doing a speech for the Ramos and Lou family in Hicksville. There's a there's a headquarters there, Fraternal Orders of Police, right? FOP there, and I'm doing a speech there that morning. It's a Saturday morning, and go home. And I got the call. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. Jump in the city. Steve and Bobby picked me up. We raced into the 105. We get there, and the detectives were so good in the 105 squad. They knew who hung out in that area where that was. And Kevin Goodspeed, one of the detectives from the 105 squad, ended up in homicide squad afterwards. Said, "Boss, this is," he tells me who. I said, "All right, we get him picked out." Picked out, boss. He took Eric back and he picked him out of a photo. Great. So we got the hunt is on. And Kevin says to me, "Hunt, look at me and look right above my head. He's in the window." It's a true story. He's in the window looking at the whole thing. So I grabbed Harry Whedon. Harry emptied that fucking building. Pardon my language. Am I allowed to say these things?
Yes.
Yes. We're in the tavern, Bobby.
All right. I'm in the zone too, by the way. And we entered the building. He's the last one out. Lock him up. And so we got that. We arrested him, I would say, within 2 hours of the crime. That's how good those detectives in 105 squad. And again, convicted, sent to jail. Murder one. Life without parole. So that was number 3. Number 4 was Randolph Holder of the same year.
Yeah. Give me a second. I got him up. Okay. I got him.
Now, this is a strange one because I had a hip.
This is Randolph Holder, right?
Randolph Holder. Yeah.
Yep.
Another crime guy, anti-crime cop. And that's what broke my heart when they got rid of anti-crime in the city. You can't be kidding me. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And they ended an anti-crime program. You got to be kidding me. The city's not safer without them.
No, anyway. I agree. Yeah.
Anyway, so Randolph Holder was a young cop and his partner, and they go to a shots fired job on the water. I think it was 2325. I forget what precinct it was, and it ended up chasing the guy. This guy Peanut Holder, Tyrone Peanut Holder, was a gang member, and they get into a firefight, and Randolph is killed, and they lock up Holder, and he's put in jail. He's a great young kid, would have been a great detective. He really was. Terrible story. Father spoke to him, and I had my hip done. I couldn't even walk, but I went to the funeral. I just came on crutches to the funeral, and people said, "What are you doing here?" And I had to go. I had to go. And so I did, but I ran it from a hospital bed. The investigation with the chiefs, with Bill Aubrey, different chiefs of Manhattan. It all came together. We had him. Now we had the. People think because you cuff him, it's over. Tom, it's just beginning. It's beginning. It's just now you're putting together your case. Now the real one comes in. The tough stuff comes in. And you see it now. It's great stuff now. The post-arrest evidence collection now, and I work for ABC, and I see the Idaho State murders, the Gilgo Beach murders. They compile so much evidence after the case is done. I wish that had happened when I was around. I wish there was computers and things like that. And I made a couple of those thrusts. Karina Vetrano is the one we can talk about later. That we just locked him down after that.
Let's hold on Vetrano. I got some stuff on her. We'll pull her up and we'll talk about that. Let's finish off the line of duties. Because obviously they're all the cases are heavy, but I think these just carry a little bit more weight. So
sure. So Paulie Tuasolo, and this is I think it was October 4th of 2016, his 4th precinct. There was a guy who was holding his Manuel Rosales. He was holding his family hostage, his ex-family, his ex-wife hostage, and he said he was going to shoot it out with the police, and they're going to kill him. So, and when he left, and sure enough, they stop him, and as they approach the car, he opens fire on Paul and shoots him right in the head and kills Paul. And Paul was the lead. Paul was the sergeant, being as what sergeants do, and he was going up before his men were. That's what kind of guy he was. And the other sergeant, Manny Quall, was shot with him, was shot in the leg. And then, of course, the fusillade of shots happened, and the perp was dead. And we take Paulie to the hospital, and Manny and Paulie, we lost Paulie. So that's the picture I showed before of when I was explaining this to the mayor at the time.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Bobby.
The picture you showed before with me and the mayor de Blasio.
Oh, de Blasio, yeah.
That was that investigation. I was explaining to him exactly, the points of where the cars were and things of that nature, and what happened, and how they approached the car tactically. And Tommy and Pete, this as well. You can be as tactical as when it goes bad, it goes bad.
Yeah,
just the way
that's right.
You put this the part of being a cop and a police officer. You put your line, and Paulie was an American hero. I'll tell you, he saved his other men's life there. So that was a tough day, and the last was another assassination. Mia Soto Familia.
Yep, I have her.
July 5th, 2017. It was the last one I had. She was assassinated by a recent releasee, Alexander Bonds, because they killed her because she was a policewoman in a police shield. She was in a police vehicle. In the 4-6, it was a July 4th detail. This is just after midnight or thereafter. He sees her. He shoots right into the car and hits her and kills her. So it's Mia, as she's called. And he runs around the corner, runs right into a sergeant and a detective, sergeant and an officer from, guess what, anti-crime. And runs right there, and they engage in a firefight, and they put the perp down. And so that's what happened with those. Tough. Now, a lot of these are solved immediately by patrol, almost immediately. It's just how quick the NYPD reacts to these things. Dennis Guerrero's one took a little investigation, but that's how quickly we get these things done. And I was proud of that we're able to lock these things down. So.
Yeah. So I was talking to Mike Marino. We shared that, and some shout out to Mike. He was on the other podcast, and he's gonna help out on this one in a couple of weeks. Pete's slacking; he feels like he needs a week off or something. So Mike Marino might jump in 1 week.
Well, Mike is an entertaining man, as you well know. So we were sergeants together in the 7th grade. And,
yeah.
I love Mike.
But anyway, he was talking to a chief of detectives who was being kind of coming down hard on his troops, and he had to remind him. He's like, "Come on, chief. Let's be honest. You got the greatest detectives in the country, maybe the world, probably the world. Give them some slack. They might play a little hard, but when that bell rings, you're gonna get your guy, right?" And the chief was like, "Yeah, I know. You're right."
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I worked a lot of these things when Pat Rafferty and Bobby Parker were killed. I was in the precinct, and I remember coming. That was after Juve, guys. And Juve was it was a Friday after Juve, exhausting week. And I just fell into my sofa to watch a football game, and all of a sudden, right back into the city. Again, we got the perp within an hour or so. Long story. So I've been working this a long time, and it's not easy.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got a couple of capers we can get into. Let's do a halfway break. We're at 5, about a little under an hour. We're at 470 live viewers. And it's been a steady climb up. Breaking 500 would be really nice, and even within the first hour. So that's great. So, Bobby, you're a big draw. I want to mention, you mentioned Steve Mancini before, and he texted me this afternoon, and he said, this is his exact words. He said, "Take it easy on the tall man."
That was one of my names. I had two names on patrol. How we beat the 9/11 system. One was tall man, one was Launchpad.
Yeah.
And they called me Launchpad, and I thought. And the neighborhood that did it was in 7-3. They kept calling me Launchpad. I didn't know why. And so because I was fast out of the car. I used to tell them I took pretty fast out of the car. Is that what you saying? I was young at the time. I was fast than I am now. And they go, "No, you like Launchpad McDuck. You look just like him, DuckTales." I said, "Thanks, guys."
Yeah. So anything, Pete? You got your Bronx homicide guys here, and I mean, man,
I do have a question actually for the chief.
Yeah.
Only because I saw the photo he showed us after the Tazzola homicide, and I saw him with Bill de Blasio, and then to the right there was Darcel Clark. Just curious. I worked with Darcel when she was a line assistant, just doing drug cases, and she was great. Later in my interactions with her, she wasn't so great. How was it dealing with her as a chief when she was the DA? Was she easy to work with? Was she obstinate? I mean, what was it like working with her at the higher levels?
Yeah. So when you're a chief, sometimes it's a battle every day. And I really liked the Bronx. And then, and so I knew Darcel. Her husband is a friend of mine. Her husband was in my academy class with me.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So I knew her from Ray, from her husband, first grade detective, excellent guy. And so you always get along professionally as best you can. And I said, listen, we took down a lot of cases in the Bronx, and you know it. I mean, we were taking, the gangs are a big, big problem, and still are in the Bronx. And so if you don't knock off the top of those gangs, you're going to have shootings all the time. So I got along well with her, to be honest with you. And when time was called, and I really would I get to her, I used to get to the number one. I think it was Tony, I can't remember his last name, he was a great guy, was Rob Johnson's number one.
Castro? Was it Tony Castro?
No. And I forget shame on me, I forget their names because I have them in my phone. And he was a great guy. And that's who you would deal with. You never really get to the boss. And I would call up and I'd say, well, listen, the New York Post is out. I'm going to have to give him a full interview right now and tell him exactly what happened. And then, you start working your case back way. Well, don't ruin the case, yada, yada, yada. And so it was back and forth. I got along with Darcel, former judge, and I still think she's a classy lady. But, there's always the chance to talk. We did a lot of press conferences of takedowns in the Bronx that burnished her image as well. So I think she's thankful for that. I really do. And she has her husband who can tell her all about the job and how we operate. So those are pluses for her. And I think, and as far as I know, again, it was all positive for that much. So most of the DAs I got along with. One's a couple, always a tug of war, if you want to ask me that question.
I couldn't imagine working with Bragg, frankly, which kills me because he was an SDNY guy. And as you know, SDNY, they're killers. They're not the kind to hold back. So how do you go from SDNY being, a gung-ho prosecutor to being what he is now is perplexing to me. But
yeah, I never worked with Alvin Bragg. I met him when he worked for the Attorney General. He was named on the police. Remember, they're going to investigate police shootings, and he came in with a couple of people, and they were all good people, got along very well. We'll share transparency, the whole 9 yards. I was impressed by him, to be honest with you. SDNY. Larry Byrne knew him pretty well. Larry Byrne was SDNY, was Eddie Byrne's brother, who was the DCLM at the time. He says, no, he's a good guy, no problem. So I don't know what happened.
Well, you're a diplomat, Chief. You're good.
What's that?
You're a small.
You work with these people all the time. You don't want to sandbag anybody because there's good days and there's bad days, but there's also good days.
Yeah.
And why spoil something? You always be professional. I had a lot of run-ins with Cyrus Vance, over the Weinstein case and other cases, but still, you can sit down and talk. You have to, because you have to go forward.
True.
You have to go forward.
Yeah. All right, you ready to switch over to a couple of big capers? You want to go to the Vetrano case first?
Sure.
So hold on, before you get into it, Lampwick, let's bring that up. Lampwick, Boyce worked that beautiful girl that disappeared jogging. I think about her dad often. So people are already teeing it up, Bobby. So walk us through this one.
So it was actually August 2nd, 2016. And I'll never forget, it was actually a National Night Out. You guys know what that is.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I was in somewhere in the 7-7 on doing the National Night Out. And we find out it's a missing girl from the 106. And I knew a little, it was next to 7-5, so I knew it was. I didn't know a lot about it. It was not far from Russo's on the Bay. There's a big park there. So missing person, and all of a sudden I got home that night, and they said, I got a call, they found the body. And they said, tell me all about it. And her father, Phil, found the body. And that started a bunch of nonsense about Phil, who was one of the best guys you ever met in your life. He's a tough guy, found a retired fireman, and a roofer, and a genuine Brooklyn tough guy, genuine. And so when someone takes your daughter from you, how are you supposed to act? There's no book you give someone or script you give. Everybody reacts differently. He was angry man. So we started working the case, and it was in Reeds. It was in a park there, right by the Bell Parkway, and there was a lot of work to this, and there was a running circle around the park, and he asked her not to run without him. And she said, Daddy, I got to run, because he had hurt his back. He goes, I'll be right back. Don't worry about it. And he was running off. So we just dedicated the place she ran on to street and every place for Karina. And so again, I talk from time to time with Phil all the time. In fact, this August will be the 10th year anniversary. I think I'll show up to that park. And she went running, and Karina was a tough lady, beautiful young girl, 30 years old, and she fought for her life and fought hard. So much so, she helped us identify the perp. She got his DNA on her fingernails. And so these tall reeds were everywhere, and we had to cut them all down. This is August. Tommy, I tell you, how old was I at the time? I was 61 years old. I was just dripping sweat in that place. We were driving those little, what do they call those green trucks around, trying to find, we were hitting homeless encampments everywhere because we didn't have anything on it. We looked at I had a team looked at all the video of the houses nearby. We had her running into the park and not coming out. And no one came out from that park. No perpetrator came out of the park from what we could see on the 106 side. So the only place that person could have gone is the bikeway path into the 7-5. Yep. So the projection was into the 7-5 at that time. And that's where we were pointing our investigation. Didn't go to South Ozone Park, which is also there. We had cameras there. No one came out, contemporaneous with the crime. No one came out. So we had a tough one. Now we had the DNA profile developed. We had it. It wasn't in CODIS or anything like that. It wasn't anyone. I was sending that profile to England. I was sending it everywhere. Any database I could find, to see if I could get a hit on that. So what did that tell me? He'd never been in jail. He may have never been locked up before. So that's my perp, possibly a young guy. Because we thought it was a singular perp all the time. And then we started working the case. And now it goes 6 months. And with people telling me you'll never solve the case. And a lot of police executives telling me you're never going to solve this case. He's in the wind. He's out of the area. Okay. I have something. I have a DNA profile. I got something. And John Russo, I don't know if you know John. He was lieutenant in my office. He was the CO of my office. Yep. John says, wait a second. This is going into towards the end of 2016. I stopped someone. We were running on everything. We were getting a lot. It was Phil had gotten the GoFundMe page for $250,000. And those things are good and bad. All right. Mostly bad, because now you've got to chase all those people down. Because you don't want a defense attorney telling you, no, you didn't look at this guy. So everyone had to be looked at, created a lot of work for us. And we had a task force on this too. And I used to plug major cases into these cases all the time, because you just needed that. They were experts on a lot of things that maybe the squads weren't familiar with. So you plugged them in as well. And so 6 months later, we finally got the guy that John had stopped in his neighborhood. John lives in Ozone Park, not Ozone Park, Howard Beach. And so he goes, just stop the guy, just go. And so all right, we look at him, and I look at him. He had three summonses in the park from different times. Urinating, doing stupid things, whatever. Not much there. But he gets thrown out of a high school. This is my perp, my would-be perp. He gets thrown out of high school, said he was going to come in and stare women. Okay, now I got a fish on the line. Let's go talk to this guy. Where does he live? Right, probably 2 doors down from the 7-5 precinct. Right, I forget the name. It starts with an H. And so we go there, and I got a call back from the team. Yeah, we went there. We took his DNA profile, but it ain't him, boss. And so I forget, told me I wanted to detective sergeant. I said, why? And he said, because he's a nerd. He's a weird oddball. He lives in the basement by himself. His mother is is really a tough woman. She was cursing at us and stuff like that. Okay. So he's kind of like an oddball loner. So I said, hey, Sarge, he just described a serial murderer to me, by the way. And so let's do it. So we sent it down and we get the hit. Guys, I will tell you to this day, I have never had a better day in the police phone. We got that hit. I was screaming in my car. They called me, it was Sunday. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And I call up to his chiefs. Mike Kemper had the thing, then Joe Kenny had to back up because Mike Kemper had it first, and Joe Kenny took it over. I called them up. They're screaming. I called up Jim O'Neill. He's screaming. I said, you want me to tell the mayor? And he goes, oh, I should do that, Bob. And so he tells the mayor. And so we got the guy and bring him in. It was Barry Brown, is one of the first later on the case. Super detectives. Could break down anybody in an interview room, in the box. This guy was that good. And he starts working the guy right from the beginning. Come on, you with me now. Come on, you with me. Don't worry about the other guys. You're with me. Does the whole thing that great detectives do. And sits him down, puts him in. I said, you want to talk to me? He goes, not yes, Mr. Brown. He goes, but maybe a little while. So he goes, well, he goes, what do you want? He goes, I want a soda. He goes, what do you want to do? He goes, I want to I said, you want to watch TV? I'll put some on TV. He starts watching cartoons. So So all of a sudden, about 20 minutes later, now Barry says, everybody out of the squad room. He's just sitting there alone. He goes, Mr. Brown, can I talk to you now? And he gives up the whole thing. The whole thing. And you know how you put out information, you have qualifying information you don't put out? So we held back on two key points. The fact that Karina's socks were wet. Her shoes were pulled off, her earbuds were pulled off, and her socks were wet. How'd that happen in that park? There was a puddle on the rain puddle on the running path. So I want my prep to tell me that he did. He said, I pulled him into the puddle. We started arguing, and he goes, and then I punched him in the face. Now, she also lost her front tooth. We never put that out. He told me front tooth. Tells me something key. His father tells us that the next day he had something lodged in his wrist and right between his knuckles. And then he went to the hospital because he was afraid he was going to get infected into downstate in Brooklyn. And that we believe was her tooth. It was missing. That's how savagely he beat her. So now I got my guy.
Bobby, let me make sure I'm hearing this right. Was the tooth embedded when he went to downstate?
It was something I'm not sure if he pulled it out and they cleaned it or they just threw it away. I'm not sure.
I'm just going to say, if you're an ER doc and you're pulling a tooth out of somebody's fist,
you know what?
There's a notification.
The tooth or something like that. He said he got jumped. He said that was the story that he got jumped. I tell you what, she fought for her life. She fought very hard.
No, I know.
So and he gives up the whole thing. And so now I got that, I got this. And I know it's going to be a problem case. And it was. The first case was a mistrial. In the second case, he was convicted and sent to jail. Tough case. 6 months into it. You got to have a lot of faith in your detectives. You really do. And you say you helped him with it and we had the whole bureau thinking about this case. Because I'll tell you, people were calling me from the London Metropolitan Police and who I met. You know how you get meet and greets? Call me. We see you on the telly all the time, Chief. We know you're going to sell it. I said, all right, you're right. I want to solve this case. So it was just one of those things. Was probably the bigger case, one of the bigger cases. And mine really stretched me for 6 months. I tell you what, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. All right. So check this out. So this is why I like, again, with the podcast with Pete and I, we're doing it. And I like when the chat gets on fire. And because the kind of capers that we do, it's usually really good. But we got a chatter here. Operation Breadbasket clearly wasn't on at the beginning. So everyone else does the work and the chief gets all the credit. I don't think Mr. Operation Breadbasket's listening. Although I do like his avatar. It's pretty funny.
I think I just said John Russo sell the case, didn't I? I think
I thought you just said that. I did think you just said that. So we like that. And then wasn't this caller questionable? Clearly, this is a person who's never worked the case.
Great question. I want to follow up on that because what I talked about before with Gilgo, right? And those things, the after thing, we had taken his phone right to that spot where he was, incontrovertible. His phone was in that spot when the time that happened. Additionally, he was doing searches on me. Plea deals, all things that a normal person wouldn't be searching from. This is a kid, 22 years old, whatever he was. All these things were probative, recovered evidence that it was him. So that really helped us a lot too. Plus the fact that we did get the report from the hospital that he went there that day too. So we put to the case after the arrest. A lot of information comes in, a lot of evidence. I still lecture at the homicide course in the NYPD, and I talk about this all the time. It doesn't stop with cuffs; it keeps going.
Yeah. Thanks. So that's good. So you said 6 months. So from like with us, I've had a couple of capers that had the chief of detectives' attention, and there would be the lieutenant who would call me once or twice a week, maybe even 5 days a week, getting updates. Whether it be a homicide that was sensational and in the news, or I had Mike Tyson be the alleged suspect in a fist fight at the Sugar Hill. I'm sure you remember. Were you there for the 11 or 12 people shot at the Sugar Hill? Was that yours?
That was my case. That was my case.
Yeah. So the good Sugar Hill.
He was from the Roosevelt House in the 8-1. And again, it's DD5 that a detective took and I watched it. Oh, that's my guy.
Yeah. So I'm on the receiving end of those kinds of calls, but now you're the one directing those calls. And then, so what's the pressure coming from you, from either the mayor's office, the PC, and then how does that trickle downhill to the squad commanders?
Very insightful question, Tom. I am the guy who's supposed to absorb all the pressure, me. I don't push it down. And I think I learned that from past chiefs of detectives. You get out there and you become transparent. They ask you the question. You become the face of the case because that guy has some relevance in his statement before. You become the face of the case, and it's not fair to detectives. That's why we have the walks. And we're not supposed to do. But that's you see detectives who have it, and I always try to throw the detectives in the newspaper article as well. I do that on my show. I did a case on murder at the Met, and what's his name? The chief of detectives from years ago. Richard, it comes to me. He handled the whole thing. He was in front of the
Castro.
The Castro.
Yeah, Victor Castro. He was in front of the location every night, taking the press. That was his job. That was revealing to me. He did the same thing I did in 1980 that I was doing in 2015. It was kind of cool. And by the way, his grandson worked in my office, was head of my office. Even cooler. And so and I see this, and I see what he was doing. You absorb the pressure, and you don't pass it on to your detectives. And the good thing you have to do is you don't have a leak in the case. You don't have a leak in the case because that could chase the perp into a lawyer, and you don't do that.
Yeah. So you make the collar. I know the father was involved, like you were saying. How did it go through the court system? Where are we at with that case, and what's the final?
Which case is this? I'm sorry. Which
It was still Vetrano.
Oh, Vetrano.
Vetrano,
It's the second case, Philly and Kathy. And you know what? You see them, and Kathy has a temper like anything else. She's just broke this woman. She just cries every time I see her. Every time I see her, she breaks down and cries. It's hard getting past something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so the second case, it was a unanimous verdict, and he was convicted. The first case was just twisted. They got a bad jury, and because I called it, and at the time was Judge Brown was the Queen's DA. Great office. Great Queen's DA was a really good office, and still I'm friends with them to this day. A lot of them, and they said, "Listen, bad jury. It happens." And the judge was great. He quickly did a mistrial, and we set up a new trial. So that worked really well, and the justice was served.
Yeah.
Trust me, guys. And people said, was he not the perp? He certainly was. It's nuclear DNA under his fingernails. He killed Katrina Petrano. There is no doubt on this earth.
Right. Yep. Sad case. All right. So another one you sent me that you wanted to talk about. I'm going to actually go to a video, if that's all right with you guys. Let me do this. Let me share a screen. Let me find this. Let me do this. I'm like the ultimate in TV production here, Bobby. So thanks.
Very impressive, Thomas. I'm telling you, you have a skill set that's well beyond mine. I had.
We all can't have Jack Stern producing for us, Sal. So thanks. All right, we get no help. Pete and I get nothing. We get nothing. But anyway, let me get this going here and share the stage and. Let's do it.
Just as PJ Avito was being laid to rest, the man accused of killing him was back in court. CBS 2's Catherine Brown with that part of the story.
The accused killer of 2 young children showed no emotion. Daniel St. Hubert appeared stone-faced before a judge in a Brooklyn courtroom, handcuffed and flanked by heavily armed officers.
Daniel St. Hubert, defendant is incarcerated.
The 27-year-old met his new public defender just minutes before the brief hearing. Edward Friedman is now assigned to represent the man police say went on a bloody week-long rampage, attacking at random.
I haven't even had much time to speak to my client, and I'm heading down there now to speak to him.
He'll explore everything, he says, including St. Hubert's well-documented history of criminal violence and mental illness. He spent 5 years in jail for the attempted murder of his own mother and was released from prison May 23rd of this year. 8 days later, an 18-year-old woman was stabbed to death. 2 days after that, 2 young children were attacked in the elevator of their apartment building just blocks away. And then, 3 days later, a 53-year-old man was stabbed in a Chelsea subway station. St. Hubert is charged with the murder of 6-year-old PJ Avito and attempted murder of 7-year-old Michaela Capers, linked to those crimes, police say, through DNA. And sources tell CBS 2 he's the prime suspect in the other 2 stabbings. An angry mob was waiting for St. Hubert outside the 90th precinct last night, their first glimpse of the man who spent 3 days at the center of a citywide manhunt.
Daniel St. Hubert is due back in this courthouse next week. For now, he's being held behind bars without bail. In downtown Brooklyn, I'm Catherine Brown, CBS 2 News.
So sadly, I've seen a lot of cases like this, but you sent it to me, Bobby. Why this one?
June 4th, 2014. I'm chief of D for about not even 2 months. First big case. And this was a monster of a case. And he's a monster of a guy. By the way, let me say he's dead. He's in jail. Either he's killed in jail or he died somehow. So you'll see Daniel say you would know more. And so we get the case. I come running into the city. I was actually having dinner in the 114, one of the restaurants there. I come running over to the Boulevard houses. And it's a Sunday afternoon. It's absolutely beautiful out. Early summer. And what happened was he went in on Friday night. We had Tawana Copeland, who lived in the pink houses, was brutally stabbed 2 weeks from that, two blocks from that location, stabbed to death 30 times. Now, I know this, and I called about it. I said, what do you got on it? They said, not much. And it looks like, 30 stab wounds. People are saying, well, she knew her perp. Not necessarily, but could be, right? There was an argument. So we're trying to piece together Tawana's life and what was happening in her life. We had where she was brutally stabbed. She was a slight woman. She wasn't big. And she was a band member in a high school band. She loved that. And so we're working that case at the time. 2 weeks, two blocks over in the Boulevard houses on Skank Avenue. Male walks in and he's in the elevator. We have Prince Joshua Oviedo and Michaela Capers. They're going upstairs to get some ice cream or ices. And they're making noise as kids do. And he goes into a rage. He stabs up both kids, killing Joshua. And we thought we were going to lose Michaela. She was that bad. She was merely taken to Brookdale, which is right there, and she was saved. But she went in months and months of rehab because we really thought she was going to die. And so we have this now. So I know about the other thing. Of course, it's a big deal when the kids got because Commissioner Bratton was there, John Miller was there, a lot of people from the press were there, Steve Davis from the press, stuff like that. What do we got? And so the ladies out front of the projects, and I can't say this enough. If you don't handle witnesses right, you'll lose them from day one. And we didn't. It was a 7-5 squad. The 7-5 squad was there. 7-5 patrol was there. They know how to lock down a crime scene, which they did. And they said they see this big heavy guy come running out of the building right before Michaela came running out, right? And he jumps over those wrought iron fences in the housing developments and runs, and he falls on the grass, which was wet, I think, from the night before. And the ladies laugh. Look at the big guy fell, and then he takes off running from there. Right after that, Michaela comes out, glove with blood, and the whole case rips open. We get a sketch of him from those ladies on the bench, and they tell us where he fell. As we go over there, we find a kitchen knife, one of those small serrated steak knives you can buy for $5 or $10 or whatever at a houseware store, and that's laying on the ground. So crime scene comes, and they were able to get a DNA profile from that. Now at that time, it takes a while to get a turnaround. You're still like 3 or 4 days away for a turnaround on the hit. It was in CODIS, so we have that, and now Commissioner Brad says, "Is this related?" I say, "Yeah, of course it is. We have a stabber in Brooklyn." So now, we flip a switch with the NYPD. We'll put 400 people in that precinct like that, and we did. Detectives were coming and canvassing left and right. We had a working sketch, which I'm a big fan of sketches, by the way. When you got nothing else, you got a sketch, you got something, because then you could stop people on the sketch, stop and question. You could talk to people. So you're giving detectives and people something that they can. It's an operational tool. So, we're a lot of people being stopped and questioned in the area, and we see people in the crowd chasing people down who look like him. We're not him. And you just chasing them down and going to beat the hell out of them because they want street justice for this guy. Because this guy was. This is a Sunday. Monday, we got a stabbing of a homeless man on the subway in Manhattan, right? And we put it up on the front page of the Post and the news. He said when he gets stabbed up, he didn't die. He said he was a very articulate homeless guy. Had to give him his due. He says the guy you're looking for, that's the guy who stabbed me, the guy on the front page of the paper. Really? So now I got probably 4 victims now.
Yep.
What's next? And then Wednesday, I get a call from the ME's office, hit in CODIS. It's Daniel St. Hubert. Did 5 years, as the reporter said, for stabbing his mother up. And he did a determinate sentence sentence. He copped to a determined sentence, which means it's self-determined, and he has to be granted parole at the end of his 5 years for stabbing up his mother. Has to be. You can't deny him. Now he's going to go on parole, but you can't deny him parole. He doesn't go before the parole board. I never knew this before, and I was mad now because this he stabbed two people in jail. This guy, maniac. So so now we're just checking. We got him now, and so I do the press conference with the boss, and it's all going. We're putting hundreds of cops in the street, and he's got a cell phone because he's he went to jail before cell phones really got big. He leaves his on, but he's jumping in the subway, so we can't hear his read. He's all over the city, and we send people over there. So it's like whack-a-mole almost. That's what we're looking at this guy. Yeah. He comes out. It's a true story. Comes out in South Ozone. What's he doing there? Pops on the phone. Pops in South Ozone Park, and I have everybody but Mounted Tommy look for this guy, and maybe I should have used Mounted too. I don't know, but we had helicopters up, everything. He comes out there, and I said, what do we have over there? Who do we have in South Ozone? That's where his mother lives, right? So he's going home. He's going home. I said, who do we have there? You got two guys from Taro there, right? I said, give me their phones. And I call them up, and I said, Taro, and I don't know who I'm talking to on the phone. Taro doesn't work for me. They work for the chief of the department. And so they're not the AV squad you think they are, by the way, from high school, right? Two guys, both were football players from the PBA team. They were monsters. One guy was a 7'3" guy who I know. And they said, boss, we see him. We got him right now. We see him. What do we do? Take him down. Take him down now. Put him on the ground. Put him in cuffs. He comes out with a knife. Dude, I have to tell you that? He goes, have you one of those knives? And so what he was doing, he wrote, kills I will, the Brooklyn killer, on the back of a stop sign. So we arrested him. Yeah. Everybody says he's crazy. He wasn't crazy enough to shave his head because he had like an afro in the sketch. So that's Daniel Hubert. And we convicted him, and Michaela Capers testified against him and sent him to jail for the rest of his life. And was the rest of his life because he was either killed in jail or I never got a full story of how he died in jail.
I never saw a defense lawyer look so unhappy to have a client. I don't know if you picked up on the guy's body language, the guy that was representing him. It looked genuinely
they're human too. And they had this monster next to them, and you got a monster next to you. We had a defense counsel stabbed in the neck with a pen one time by his client, 6'7" perp. So they're violent people. He can't be too happy with this too, because no matter what he says, people are going to hate him now for defending his client. Yeah. He's taking the city's money like we do. So
he's got a job to do.
18B lawyer. Yeah. So that was probably like my Kitty Genovese moment. I got to get this guy in. It's a big case because we knew he was going to kill again. He was ready to kill someone else, and we grabbed him. He had a knife on him, the same thing from the pack. When we hit his house, he had 3 of the knives were gone. One was still in that packet that he had. It was a tight case. But I'll tell you, Michaela Capers, God bless her. She went on the stand and he defended himself like a moron. He was asking questions, and she goes, "You stabbed me, sir. You did." She was great.
Wow. Yeah, I read an article. There was a follow-up article for her, like 17 or 18 years of age, her going off to school, and there was some good follow-up on her. They got some good stories for her following up as well. So we're at 642 live viewers. So thanks everybody for that. I really appreciate everyone coming in.
I'm a very competitive man. How am I doing?
Good.
Definitely top two.
Okay.
Top 2. Come on, Bobby.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wait, we got about a half an hour, give or take, to go, unless you've got the stamina to keep going. But Pete's people down in Florida, they're all old now, and they're all saying, "Come on, guys, you got to keep it less than 2 hours." But the stories just keep going. So you threw a couple up out, so I'm going to throw one up on the screen. We'll set it up, and then you can talk us through this one as well. So October 31st, 2017. I can't even say this guy's name. So he drove the rented pickup truck into the cyclists and runners on Hudson River Park's bike path. I believe it was 8 people killed and 6 were foreign tourists. So, Bobby, walk us through this one. I'm sure this was not a good day for, obviously, the victims, but, what does this mean for you and the work that the detectives and the job have to go through?
Actually, we were on the scene within minutes. It was on the west side. We went shot down Chambers Street. It was at the end of Chambers Street, right by Stuyvesant High School. So we were there like that from headquarters. That's where we came from. And this was on Halloween in 2017. It was relevant. It was during the afternoon. because we had the Halloween parade that night. And I didn't know if the mayor was going to cancel or not. It was that bad. 8 people murdered. He jumped a bike path in a rental car. He was from Jersey. He was radicalized. And he was going on the bike path and just mowed these people down. A lot of them never saw them coming. He just killed them. And I think 4 of the people were from Argentina up on bicycles on a weekend celebration of graduating high school together. Made it even more sad. And the other 4 people were also there, right there as well. Right by Stuyvesant High School, was not far. And he then takes the vehicle, the truck, and runs it into a school bus, which was right there. And thankfully, only one child or 2 children on the school bus, and they weren't hurt substantially. But he hurt a lot of other people in the way. Gets out of the bus, and he has 2 what we think are guns, and they were not real guns. He couldn't find his knives within the truck, and he had the black ISIS flag. So we knew it was right. He yelled Allahu Akbar, and at that, 2 officers were coming about. I'm reading what Patty wrote. The 2 officers were coming out Stuyvesant High on an aid run. They confront the guy, and they actually shoot, I think, 7 rounds, I believe it was, and striking him once and put him down. And we took him to Bellevue, and I tell you what, I had Jimmy O'Sullivan, one of my, who's now in JTTF. I said, Jimmy, right, get in the ambulance with him. See if he got a statement, see if he got whatever he says is important. And so Jimmy calls me, this guy's a maniac, boss. He's a maniac, screaming, ranting, spitting. He's an animal. And so, and that was him. He was a radicalized guy. Again, this was not my case. We're in support of the FBI. This is all these cases. You're in support of the FBI. But I really got close to the assistant director in New York, Bill Sweeney, and he was helping me on my cases, and I was helping him on his cases. And so it was important to understand that even though we work these cases together, and that's actually really important. That's the best way to do it. None of this egos, none of this stuff. Everybody just let's go, no ego, let's go, and that's what we did. And I remember at the time I explained it to Commissioner, this was Commissioner O'Neill at the time, but also Mayor de Blasio and the mayor and the governor, Andrew Cuomo. And so exactly the details. This was not our case, but as Chief of D, you have everything. People come to you with information, you collate it, you boom, you pop it out, and you do briefings so everybody have to, and make sure that they know what's going on. So clearly it was a terrorist attack, and it wasn't the first one I had. That was that 2 months later, it was Akiled Ulad, who tried to blow himself up and others in the 42nd Street tunnel in transit. That was the same year, 2017. And in 2016, we had Ahmad Khan Rahimi, who exploded a bomb on 23rd Street, severely injuring 30 people severely, 4 people severely, ball bearings, all kinds of things. Again, that's when I met Bill Sweeney on the thing. This is right when Jim O'Neill took over, September 2016, as PC. So that when we got there, we saw the bomb material. We saw it was one of those things similar to the Boston massacre, Boston bombers. It was similar to that. That's Akiled Ulad. That's his case right there. He was kind of like he didn't know how to build a bomb. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Khan Rahimi did. He went over to Pakistan, went into the camps and learned how to do it. Found out that later. And that was my first one. He was my last one. But Rahimi was my first one that I had as Chief of D. Now, I had a case in 1997 of 2 guys who tried to blow up the Flatbush Avenue station. So I had some familiarity with terrorism. So I knew what it was as soon as I heard it.
Yeah, remind me the 8/8 case, because I remember a little bit about it, but I couldn't dig it up in time for tonight's podcast.
I was a lieutenant in the 8/8 squad.
What are the chances in the 8/8 though, right?
What's that?
What are the chances in the 8/8?
It's not the Garden of Eden you might think it is, Thomas. All right, it's not the 7-7, but it's it can get busy there. And I got called back in, and we had 2 guys trying to blow up the Flatbush Avenue station, suicide bombers. I think that was the first time we had that in America. And they went and they told there was a 3rd individual who lived with them, who went and told I forget where the cop, it wasn't NYPD. And then he brought them over to, I think it was an MTA police officer, into an 8/8 squad car, and the squad car brought him into the precinct. And my detective started talking to him, and he called me at home and said, "Boss, I think we got something. Maybe you better get in there." And I did. And we went in there. We started running with the case. Called the duty captain, the duty chief, yada yada. There's an apartment on 4th Avenue. I remember that we hit the door at 4 o'clock in the morning. We evacuated as many people as we could. And I still wasn't sure, although I liked the guy. I liked what he was telling us. He seemed genuine. He was dressed in like silk. He looked like he was going out having a couple of drinks. He loved America. He said, "I don't want to die, and I don't want to kill anybody in America." He goes, "But these guys want to." So we went in. ESU went in and took the door. And I'm sitting outside. I'm saying, "Boy, I hope this isn't BS. I hope this actually is." So I didn't wake everybody up. They woke the mayor up, the whole thing. And then I hear the machine guns go off. I guess it's founded. We take the guys who put them in the ambulance, and they tell us exactly what happened. And we were able to tell the bomb squad of how he device. He had 9-inch construction nails, rubber band together. It was, I think it was 6 or 7 pipe bombs that they built with gunpowder. And he had, I don't want to give away how they're made, but he had it to a battery that could have exploded and killed all those people. And it was his name. One guy's name was Ghazi Ibrahim, and he was the mediator of the two. He was the guy pushing this stuff, and I believe he was a follower of the Blind Sheik at the time. That was in 97, I believe. So I had these before. So you see them again at 10 o'clock in the morning. JTF comes, "We're taking a case. Please do."
Was Charlie Kemmerdenner the chief on that scene?
What's that?
Was Charlie Kemmerdenner the chief
He
on that?
was. He certainly was. The boss was great. He knew exactly what he was doing, and we took that door.
He was my boss as a housing detective. And look, a lot of people didn't like Charlie because he was hard on you if you weren't a worker. But if you were a worker, that guy would have followed. He treated you like gold. Yeah, I remember that incident going back.
He did. He did a great job that night. He's a good guy. He's a true policeman. Yeah, he could be a tough. But
I adored the man because, like I said, he held me accountable. He wanted me to work. If you needed overtime and you were out there really doing work, you got overtime.
Listen, we don't need a search warrant. We got bombs on the door. You're taking that door. Remember, it's an exception, so we didn't have to do any of that stuff. So we're taking that door. And I said, "Well, so if you don't take it, I'm going to take it." The ESU guy. It was Ralph. I forget the name of the captain from ESU. Great guy. He was the boss. Ralph was. I said, "There you go, Ralph." He was a great guy, and it just started boom, 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 boom. Everybody was housing, I think, but me at one time. Because the duty captain was housing, duty inspector was housing, and Ralphie, of course, and then it was Charlie Kemmerdenner. And so it went really well. ESU did a wonderful job that night, and the bomb squad. And I saw the bombs later.
Full disclosure, I tried out for ESU with Rafi Pasculo, Vinny Dange, John Coglin, some of the guys we lost on 9/11. And I got weeded out because I couldn't climb the Verrazano Bridge. Heights got me. I went back to anti-crime. So.
Yeah. All right. So, Bobby, any other cases before we transition? Like what post NYPD looks like for Bobby Boyce? Any other capers you want to get into?
No, I do a lot of work for ABC. I break down stuff and I explain to civilians exactly what we're thinking, what the chief's thinking at the time, and what the protocols are for different things. So that's what I do now. And I have this TV show, which we did 52 episodes of New York Homicide. And
we'll get into. I'll pull up. Yeah, I think you got this one here. So there's you on TV, and then. So how long have you been doing the ABC, and how does that work? Like, you got to be on call for these guys. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so you get a call at different times, get in front of a thing, and you start talking about things. And usually it's active shooters, but I also do. I've done 20/20s for them. I've done nightlines for them, whatever they want. I tell you what, they've treated me wonderfully. I'm there 7.5 years. They hired me right out of the police department, and I'm called a contributor. And whatever, I get on the air and I talk about with a lot. I have a lot of friends there who are, two FBI. And one Secret Service. We'll all go on different cases, whatever comes up, and we'll talk about what the cases are and what the police chief is thinking and what we have right now. And because they'll go to a scene and all of a sudden I'll see everybody standing down. Well, perhaps either dead because of the protocol, or he's in custody at this point. It's over. You don't see anybody taking tactical positions. And I tell you, 99% of the time, the law enforcement in this country are right on top of it and do the right thing. And just, they stack on the door, they go in. And these are a lot of them are patrol cops, guys, who are doing these things across the country. And next thing you know, a chief's on TV, never been on TV before. Now the chief's got explained. exactly tactically what happens on the search warrant, on the events once they get more information. But you get to it now, I can tell how many shots if he's got a handgun or a rifle. I can tell exactly. I'll say that too. But the number of shots he probably has a pistol. He only shot 6 times, so it's probably a pistol of some kind. That's probably what he went with. So we have a big problem with mental illness in this country, and a lot of that's from there. But I'll also talk about like homicides and things like that. I want to even see I'll tell you. Yeah, they did a great job in Gilgo Beach. Rodney Harrison, as you know, went out there, was able to work that and lead that investigation. A lot of those detectives who work for the DA squad are NYPD, retired.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of them. They've done a great job. People said that would never be solved, and it was. Well, we'll see when it goes to trial, but he's still proven guilty. And same thing with Idaho State. I mean, there was people in the media calling him Santa Claus, the chief out there. Remember the guy with the white beard? I said, well, Santa did everything right. He brought in the feds, he brought in the state police, and now they got their bad guy, and he's convicted. He's doing 6 life sentences without parole, something like that. So you see these things, and I cover them. I covered the Luigi Mangione case. I am covering to this day. So we talk about what would I be doing if I was the chief there. So that's so you'll go on. It's a good gig, but sometimes you lose your life. When President Trump was shot, you go 4 straight days in the case, and which is fine. That's what they paid me for. So I'm very fortunate to be doing that. It keeps me plugged in.
Yep.
Across the country, which I'm really happy with.
So speaking of plugged in, so talk to us about New York Homicide on the Oxygen True Crime channel. How did that start? Like when does this conversation, and then when did they went like from conversations to like, no, this is real, to like, let's go into production? And I think you're in season 3 now, right?
We just finished season 3. We're hoping to hear about season 4. And we have 52 episodes.
Great.
The first season, I think, was 12, then 20 and 20, second and third. So 2 producers came to me, referred to me from Bill Bratton, and asked me if I would be interested in the show. At this time, we were feeling the effects of the Floyd case, and they were beating up, all kinds of change, police change, get rid of the police, all these things. And I said to them, hey, that's not us. I wouldn't do that. I said, we don't do that at all. So I said, we're helping people. I said, so I'll go on and we'll start a show. And I did it with my wife, Terry Lito, who's a retired first grade detective at a Brooklyn South Homicide. And I said, let's go out and pitch a show. We originally were going to do the show about female detectives, homicide detectives, and how much harder their life is than a male's. And I'll trust you, it is. It's a lot harder. But they got to go home and feed the kids and put everybody to bed and all kinds of things and work trumps to crime scenes. So we go out there and we sit down and we sell it to the Oxygen Network. And Terry actually sells the show, not me. And we start production. All right. And so the first season was the template. And then we ordered up another 20 and another 20. So that's where we are right now. But it's all about the detectives and the families. It's not about me. I mean, I frame the cases, I do the narration, but it's not about me. It's about the detectives who catch the cases and how they solve it. And I will tell you, not everybody wants to come on the show, detectives. They want to live their life.
We know that. Well,
we don't mention names. Some of the hardest core guys I've ever seen in my life. No thanks, boss. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Hardcore, great detectives who solved a lot of the cases that I do. And so that's we had the great John Cornicello on the show this past season.
I saw John. That was the 40 caliber killer, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So and then I finally broke through and did a lot of Brooklyn North cases this past season. I'm very happy with that. And then book itself.
Yeah. So, well, maybe as we get towards the end of the conversation tonight, we'll go find George, buried in the back of the Ten-Four Tavern somewhere, and see if he's got some old capers he can bring up and resurrect and squeeze some people and get them to step up. And it's really funny how modest they are. They did tremendous work. There's one person in particular I know we talked about. I'm not going to mention his name. Major case, like really big cases, and just happy to just write off in retirement and not talk about it. So these guys are not only tremendous detectives, but very humble. And
Tom, when I'll tell you the same thing. The ones who decline, call me anytime. I say any question, but I'm not going to Tampa. That's what it is. Yeah. And I say thank you so much. I will call you. because I want to see certain things. You got to give me some insight. Tommy, I got to do an hour in the show, so you need more material. And a lot of times you see how quick we make a column in a couple hours. It's just so you have to find cases that are going to generate an hour, going to be interesting, and that's the hard part of this thing.
Yeah, so
we got plenty of those. I'm not worried.
I mean, the production value is really tremendous, and I think when you do this, and all we do is basically show up. Maybe Pete and I do an hour or two research. If the guest calls up, and then we pull together, and you see how crude it is, but it's fun, and I think it's entertaining, and the people like it. I mean, we're 726 right now, by the way. So I think you might have I think you might have peaked out. So yeah, so thank you. And then you just can imagine how much goes into it. And even though there are thousands and thousands of stories, not just in New York, but across the country, do they blend into each other? But you guys do a really great job of making each one feel like it's unique, but they have a lot of parallels. And then, which is good caper I'd like to talk about if you have real quick. I don't have anything to pull up. The kids on the east side that did the homicide up in the apartment building. I think it was in Sutton Place. And then they carried the guy out in the bag. That was yours too, right?
Yeah, it was my case. And Kevin Maroney it was 17th precinct. That's what's supposed to happen there, Tom.
That's right.
And so it was kind of a weird case. And Joey Community Alley was the victim. And just a great kid, just a great college athlete, wonderful young man, handsome, lots of great friends. And the father just breaks your heart when you watch the show. What a good guy he is, Patrick. And so it really hurts to see that happen, because when it happened, the detectives really stood up, but so did his friends. They were at a place called the Golden Lily, or the Gilded Lily downtown, having a great time, as young guys do, the young people do. And he meets a couple of girls to go to an after party. And I say, everybody know when to go home. And I was a bartender for many years, as you know, before I came on the job. And I was like, know when to go home. And so Joey went to the after party, and the girls left, and then went bed after that. It was such a brutality murder. It was a disgusting murder. And it was really rough. And all perps make a mistake. You know that. Good detectives find a mistake and turn in evidence. It's all about evidence. And Joey Herbert always said that evidence. You can never have enough. And that's what it was. It was they threw his clothes out after they murdered him and put him in a pile, thinking that was going to be picked up by the garbage. And it was not. We got it. And in fact, Pat Cumiali's, the dad, came down and said, look in there. We found all the stuff. We found his ID. So you can imagine how that man felt. And still you hold out hope that your son's alive. And we went to tell him that night. It was a very difficult time. Yeah. Very difficult time, because we had to go up to Connecticut and tell him. My lieutenant and two of his detectives went up and tell him. One of them is in Manhattan South homicide now out of that case. So tough times. The tough case was the first one we had. And took it to trial. And there's a lot of ins and outs in the case. And that worked out really well. Both of them are sitting in jail right now.
Yeah.
Certainly so.
Yeah, that's a crazy caper. But so all right, so we're at 8:43, a little over 2 hours and 1 hour and 45 minutes. Pete, anything during the conversation strikes up, bringing back to the Bronx homicide and Bronx.
No, I'm just a little pissed off, frankly, because I left the Bronx in 2001 to go to ATF, and then I left New York entirely in 2007 to go to Phoenix, which, as we know, in hindsight, was a huge mistake. But I wish I got a chance to work for the chief. I had some great chiefs. Chief White was there.
He just passed away, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Chief White just passed away.
He was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a gentleman. Cameradena was the chief when I first got there after the merger. And then Chief Matarazzo, like I said, great guy. He was interesting because, very charismatic, also very gregarious. So like here I am, just a third grade detective walking by. He'd be like, Pete, what are you doing, buddy? What are you doing? Come here for a second. Come here. What's up, Chief? I need you to come inside. He'd have ordered a pizza, and he didn't want to eat the whole pizza by himself. So here I am, a third grade detective sitting in the chief's office near the catch unit there, back in the old 4-8. So he was just a good guy. And then, like I said, then he left.
No, he signed out when he retired out of Bronx Detectives to the Homicide Squad. He signed out.
Really?
Yeah, I said, where you going? I call him Don Alfredo. Do you need me to come with you? Oh, no. And he signed out there when his last act was signing out of Bronx Detectives. He loved it there.
he was such a great guy. Like he empowered his detectives. I mean, here was a chief. Like as you know, some chiefs don't talk to detectives. Some chiefs don't talk to people below the rank of inspector. He just was a good guy, treated us so well. And then we had Pulaski for about a heartbeat, and then Resnick came in, and that's around the time that I left. So, but I love the Bronx. Great place. It's good to actually talk to a chief that works in the Bronx. We hear so much from Manhattan, and with Tommy here, Brooklyn. So it's refreshing to hear some Bronx stuff, Chief.
90% closing rates in the Bronx. No one had that across the city. No one. Because they go back to other years and make cases. They knock out a lot on gang takedown. And just, they had such great Carlos Infante, Nicky Chulo. I can keep Chufi, excuse me.
Yeah.
Just great detectives who taught the people coming in.
I think
so many more.
Yeah, I think Chufi's doing mob movies now or something.
He should. He's Joe Pesci for crying out loud.
Yes, he was Joe Pesci's clone. But no,
great guy. In the box, great guy, and just could work with anybody. Could work with the Bronx DA, and he was really good with that. And then whatever he asked Nick to do, he was a DEA delegate at the time too. He did it. There's an old case with him and Carlos, and I tell the story all the time in the homicide lecture. There was a murder of someone got his throat cut and Perp wrote "bitch" on his body in lipstick. Crazy case, right? In the Bronx, housing project in Bronx, and they would go back to those women out front of the projects all the time. Anytime they drive by, let's talk to them again. They needed a name on the. She was a sex worker who killed the guy. They finally got the name and solved the case. This is like 3 or 4 years later. That's how good they are. They just in their heads and they kept working the case. I have nothing but superlatives to say about the Bronx Homicide Squad.
I love working there, and I'll tell you what, Chief. I came on the job at age 20. I was young. I was still a kid. The values that I have as an adult, I learned in the Bronx as a Bronx cop and a Bronx detective, and they served me well through my 35 years in the profession. So I have deep respect for the Bronx. Like I said, I wish I could have spent some time working there while you were still there, but
I got there in 2010, so you were long gone by then, right? But 2010,
yeah,
so I got there. But I had the 4.0 in 2000, and I remember how overworked they wouldn't send any detectives to the place. And one thing we were able to do is get more and more help there.
I'm still in Bronx Homicide in 2000. The sex money murder case was just wrapping up in 2000.
No, very well.
Famous case. Yeah,
famous case. We know well. It's Soundview houses, right?
That was my case. I loved it. Great time. I learned that's where I learned the federal system was working sex money murder.
A lot of great cops come out of them, and a lot of when it was like an interchange between them and Manhattan North, back and forth. If you went, you got made sergeant. You went to Manhattan North. You came back as a lieutenant. The Bronx is like a crazy place. But you think about the Bronx. The people themselves were always friendly. And when Brooklyn guys would come up to the Bronx, you'd be standing at a crime scene. People walk by and say, "Hello, how you doing, detectives? How are you?" And we weren't used to that in Brooklyn. I was like, "Why is everybody so friendly here? It's just a nice place." And so it's tough. It's tough. But the people, in poverty, living in those developments, they were really sweet. Really sweet.
I agree.
Yeah. Tommy, what's next?
All right, so listen, let's go through. There's some really good comments. Let's wrap up with some comments because I need a couple of chuckles and then there's some pretty good questions. Our good friend, I never met him before. Don't know who he is. He's been in the chat before. Let me find him. Operation Breadbasket again was asking what was your favorite command. I think you answered that. You said the 6-7 at the beginning was your favorite.
I'm not putting anyone down. I really like them all, but 6-7 is special.
Yeah. So that was that. And then Lampwick, thanks, Lampwick. He's going to start pimping merchandise for us. He's telling us to get bar signs and pint glasses. So we'll have a conversation and we'll cut you in. We'll give you a little percent. Just grab a slice. Rob Lukash, Chief Rob Lukash. $100 question. If you're the mayor offers you PC, do you accept it? Doesn't matter if it's likely or not. If you got asked to be the PC, would you take the job? Yes or no?
Who's the mayor?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. So yes. And I'll tell you why. It's important to understand that. I love the job so much, and I'm no kid. So I don't know how much I can give him. But here I am talking to you. I would do it just because the job saved the job, put the job back on it. And it's doing well. It's done well. But I want to bring it back to that special place in 2017, 2018 that we need to be with those low numbers, pre-COVID numbers. And that's what's important.
Yep. So, I mean, like,
yes, but that's not
So-
going to happen.
Right. So if Sliwa wins, this whole thing, and because Jack Stern wants us to talk about current things right now. This is so crazy, the whole thing, and all of these people asking Sliwa to back out. They should shut up and mind their business and let it be what it be. And there's the only person that shouldn't be in the race is Cuomo, because he already lost to the guy and he's the independent. So if anyone drops out, it should be him, regardless of what you think of Sliwa. That's my personal opinion. I'll let you guys talk about that. But whether it's Sliwa or Mondami, I don't know that you would accept, but I'm thinking obviously you would have conversations about what the approach is and how things would play out.
There'd have to be some gimmicks, like we don't get rid of CRG. We cannot
Right.
get rid of CRG. That's
Right.
that's a non-starter. We built CRG because of the Bataclan in Paris. We had to put long guns on the street. This is easy stuff, and a mature person can understand this. We need certain things. If you don't want to use them for civil unrest, fine, don't use them, but you don't get rid of them either. They're too important to this city. 345 Park Avenue, when the shooter came from Vegas to kill that, to kill those three people in there. Guess who went in? CRG with long arms. Come on now. And then, so there's some non-starters, but they're not going to ask me. But there's some things you can't lose. This gang database is silly. The talk of it, getting rid of it, it's just silly. A gang database saves lives, and not only from being killed, gang members and witnesses and innocent people, but it'll save people from a life of crime, a life of jail, by keeping kids out of gangs. It's as simple as that. We have to have it. It's a non-criminal database. Not to use it is foolish. And there's just a lot of crazy thought and people who are never in policing who are doing it. And that's what's important to understand here. So I'm talking myself out of the job right now, Tom. It's just
yeah. But Chief,
it is what it is. These things are relevant. They're important. That the federal cases, the takedowns, that's what's keeping crime down, the shootings down, because they're doing a great job. Commissioner Tisch has done a wonderful job.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Ralph Clark, the guy who runs Sound Thinking, used to be called ShotSpotter. I had a dialogue with him as they were attacking ShotSpotter in Chicago, which I'm sure you heard of. And I know, Tommy, you were working in LPR stuff, license plate reader technology. They were attacking that. So, when you talk about the gang database, what I've learned is that the hard left, and I'm not into politics much. I would call myself a law and order independent. But I've learned the hard left will attack anything that works to put bad people in jail. And I don't understand the rationale behind it, but they're consistent in that one thing, that they will go after something that works, whether it's CRG or the gang database or LPR or facial recognition, which I know is a little bit controversial.
All right.
Let me.
Yeah. Sorry, Pete. There was a gap. I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
No, that's it. I mean, if it works, it puts bad people in jail.
In fact, by the way, when I really have tech questions, I call that guy right there, Tom Joyce, because he's the guy.
So thanks, boss.
The guy. You were telling me about what we talked about drones the other day.
Yeah, we talked about it all, baby. Drones are hot. I just got back from ICP. Drones were hot. Robotics were hot. AI, by the way, I think Christian Quinn's coming up. He's Fairfax County major, retired AI expert. So he's going to be a great, if you're interested in AI for law enforcement, that's going to be a good episode coming up. So I just got back, all the technology. So this is something I feel really strongly. I feel really strongly about my knowledge. Pete, I'm going to answer your question. Why do they attack these things? Every single talking head, every single loudmouth who's trying to suppress all of these technologies, they know not what they talk about. They're not informed on any of this information. This is a power play to say, I can get the police not to be able to use technology. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does. I don't know how it affects anybody. I don't know what the impacts are. I just want to be able to say, I was the one that crushed this capability. That's what this whole thing is. So whether it's ShotSpotter, which is gunshot acoustic detection systems that detect gunshots. Hello, that's easy. Oh, the microphones might be listening to my conversation. I guarantee you, nobody's listening to anybody's conversation on the street corner. All right. LPR, nine higher court cases, all make it constitutional. Never even reach the Supreme Court, yet they still continuously attack LPR. Facial recognition, only in the field, faces in the wild, in a public space, no expectation of privacy. Supreme Court cases knock this down. All higher court cases knock this down all the time. They just keep going. First Amendment, right? First Amendment is not for sale act is currently in legislation right now. It's stupid. It's something that's been going on for 30 years. It's protected by Driver's Privacy Protection Act and Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. It's already legislated. It's not good enough. They want to cut it down. I can go on and on.
No, I know. Tommy, look,
who want to
Somebody's-
suppress capability.
Some of these police chiefs also are not cut from the same cloth as Chief Boyce here, where they're law and order, like, you go out there and do the job. Chief, you'll love this. In the county I live in, the lovely suburb of Fairfax County, Virginia, foot pursuits are now taboo. You need permission from a supervisor to chase a suspect on foot. Can't make this shit up.
It doesn't make a lot of sense either, because
No.
he's running from the law for a reason. And so, and by the way, he's got a better than average shot of getting away from you too.
Yeah, of course.
These are all legs. I have, even when I was young, these guys were fast. We were chasing. They usually throw the gun, and people don't understand that they throw the gun and you recover a gun, you get that off the street on a foot pursuit, and I see it all the time, and no one ever talks about that. Even if and then listen, everybody gets due process, Pete. Everybody.
Yeah.
Now you get arrested, you get into the process. It's not we're not robbing you of that. It's just that it is what it is. We need these things. And by the way, Shot Spotter. Yes, I solve cases on that.
Okay, so here we go. Perfect, Bobby. 92 Charlie, Shot Spotter, political tool, did nothing for the city or lower crime, nothing. You solve cases. I also know who was one of the project managers on that. So let's do a little Shot Spotter.
Directly to
We'll
92 Charlie. 92 Charlie. All right, let me talk directly to him. So I had a case, and I'll give you this is just case log, because it's happened before. Where do people shoot their guns? Anybody? When they first get them, where do they bust caps?
Rooftops
and housing developments, yes, sir, and other places. So now you collect that brass, and now you put it into a system, and now you run it, and you don't have anything on it, obviously, but you do have a location. You have a geo spot there. That's where you recover the shot here. So I got a New York Nick shot at a club, robbed outside, shot in the leg, and Samara, there, she's smart. And so a shot in the leg, ruined his career, and we get the shell casing. It comes back to the Sumner houses in the 7-9. Tommy, the Sumner houses.
Sumner.
All right,
Georgie,
we're looking at 3 guys in the Sumner house. I forget the numeric on the Sumner houses. And we look at 3 guys for other robberies. We put it all together. They shot the Nick, and we get them ID'd by people on the scene. When you solve a pattern, you solve 3 or 4 more crimes. You have a better case when you go to it. That's how we did it through the Shot Spotter, because the perps who shot him lived in that building, the Sumner houses. All right. So 92 Charlie, you're wrong, and I have proof on it too. I don't know who it is, but nonetheless, it solves crimes and it gets the police there quicker.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely. And, to your point, Chief, yeah, it solves crimes. But the other things, let's say that you don't even care about solving crimes, which we do. Obviously, we're all former detectives. Plenty of people have been saved because, as we know, not everybody calls 911. Plenty of people have been saved when Shot Spotter puts over that there are shots fired at a location where nobody made a phone call, and arriving officers find the guy shot on the scene and could get an ambulance there, get him to the hospital. Even aside from the crime fighting aspects of Shot Spotter, it's a life-saving tool. And so Chicago getting rid of it made absolutely no sense to me. But again, it did put some people in jail. Look, I get it because again, Ralph Clark is a little bit left of center, and he's not into stop and frisk and stop, question and frisk and all that stuff. So we had a discussion about that and said, Ralph, what do you think happens when a Shot Spotter alert comes over and there's 4 guys standing on a corner where the shots were detected from? They're going to get spoken to by police, and they might get frisked. So it's funny, but I mean, that's just how things work.
Let me jump in on this. Let me jump in.
When Randall Holder was killed in the line of duty, he was responding to a shots fired. All right. So don't give me any more nonsense about shots fired. It's just nonsense. It's some people who don't know, who just and there's a lot of folks who just want to push it back. It doesn't produce this all the time. It's just another layer that we add. Right. It's not the panacea for everything. But why wouldn't you have that layer of getting there quicker? Now we can put drones in the air, get to the spot even quicker. So it's silliness not to use proven technology because it doesn't work every time. No, it's important to understand to get there fast and quick. And then there's an example too of getting to a spot very quickly and identifying a person who just lets some rounds go.
Yep. So this is perfect. Yeah, and you're right, Bobby. I agree with that 100%. It's another layer. It's another thing. It's a tool and tool belt. So I will address this 92 Charlie. I get a lot of what you're saying, and you're making fair points. But what I will say is I happen to know the project manager who ran the NYPD Shot Spotter program. He is a recently retired sergeant, very smart guy. And he did say there was a lot of problems and a lot of inefficiencies in the system and ineffectiveness in the system. And it took them a while to really tweak it and get it to the way they want.
I know who you're talking about, Tom. A friend of mine. I know who you're talking about. First name starts with a J. And good guy and really a sharp piece of work. But with any technology, even facial rec, right? Look at all the hell we went through with that. But
Right.
every federal rec case has to have a 61 number or a complaint number,
Yep.
an investigation number. So no one's and it doesn't even give you probable cause. It just
Right.
gives you basic investigative steps to go further.
And I think there's a fair point in what that ROI is. Like, I'm spending this amount of money. What's that return? You know what? Let somebody else worry about that. If I'm a working detective out there and some bean counter figured out that they can afford it, and then the IT guys deployed it, and it's out there, I'm going to use, as a detective, I'm going to use it when I'm going to use it. And and if it yields results, great. If it doesn't, I move on to the next thing. Evidence. Joey Herbert, right? So really good stuff. 92 Charlie, like that it's a dialogue out there. So if there's anything else, we're going to start wrapping up. I'll bring Georgie back because he says he wants to say goodnight. So we'll bring Georgie back. Georgie, ready?
Hey, let me tell you something. That Charlie guy, he says, I worked in ops. You can kiss my ass, you worked in ops.
George, what does that bottle do? Is I want to say it now.
Now I'm drinking it straight because I got no club soda left 2 hours later.
You work where you'd be drinking blue right now if you can't say it on the
there
show.
you
Come
go.
on now.
I got to
Georgie's in the tavern.
I give the 2 years credit. You remember shit that there's no way I could remember this stuff with the case
so good.
and everything. I give you both credit.
It's the best, George. It's the best. It's all good.
So a quick story just to finish up with the boss. So when he was retiring, me and Joey Calabrese, my old partner, rest in peace, Joey, we drive up to the Bronx to say goodbye to the boss. And he shows us around, beautiful building where his office was, where the homicide squad was. So as we're leaving, I looked at him. I say, boss, I said, tell you what, could you transfer me and Joey up to Bronx Homicide just for a day? And he looked at me like with this confused look on his face. Said, well, I want to work in the greatest homicide squad in the world, too. I mean, this Bronx stuff, you're killing me. Brooklyn North, my squad commander, worked in Brooklyn North. And between him, O'Neill, and the other boy, it was all Bronx.
Yeah.
You know, the Bronx has been so. I'll tell you this: you guys were lucky. You were in Brooklyn North. We were lucky. We worked with Joseph Esposito. Was the best chief I've ever met in my life. All right, by far one of the best men I've ever met in my life too. And so we were a little spoiled with Joe Espo because with everything he brought to us. So I remember him fondly. And one thing I said, I think I said it before the show, is the boss. I could say anything I wanted in the Bronx to Comstat. I would always throw street names in. And he would look at me like this, because he didn't know the Bronx. He only knew Yankee Stadium. And it was a big place after that. So I used to use that. I get away a lot of things when I had the Bronx at different times too. And I have nothing but positive to say. And I'll tell you, I think I told you that no one had any special assignment money, no SDS, no CS. It was a crazy place. I never understood it. But great detectives. And that building on Simpson Street is a special place in the city.
It's the old 4-1. Yeah. The old Fort Apache.
Yeah.
I never got working there. I left about 2 months before they moved from the 4-8 to that building.
4-8, yeah. It was a special place. And I say you're walking into something special every morning when you walk there. Nothing wrong with Brooklyn North. George, I'm Brooklyn North through and through.
I know, but you're killing me.
I worked 7 of the 10 commands there.
No offense, Pete. No offense.
None taken, brother.
Well, we got another. So all right, let's settle this right now. So, Bobby, you're going Bronx detectives over Brooklyn North.
Don't put me in that spot.
No, he's not answering.
No, I mean that where you had
Herbert alone, I would never do that.
All right, but we have another one. So, Chief, we had 3 weeks ago. We had Chief George Colina from Miami. Then we had Jimmy Kennedy from Brooklyn North 7-5 and Brooklyn North Homicide, one of Georgie's buddies and partners. And then we went last week. We had Jeff Lewis from Miami-Dade Homicide. Great episode, really cool cases. And then tonight we got a chief of detectives from NYPD. So 2 chiefs, one from Miami, one from New York. We had 2 homicide detectives, one from Miami. Pete's the only person here that has worked in both places. Pete, Miami, would you rather be a cop or an agent in Miami or New York?
Well, you know what, Tommy?
I'm
still a Bronx housing cop at heart, man, walking the beat in the projects. I loved working in both. Here's one thing I'll say. I'd rather do the job in New York back in the days when we did it back in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, man. No better place to be a cop. But I'll say this: South Florida is a lot like New York in that the cops are family down there. I didn't see that out west. I know in some big cities that's the case, like LA. There's a sense of family that exists in both places. So I know this is a punk thing to do, but I'm gonna call it a draw for the. If I could go back in time, I would say NYPD back in those days. Man, during the summer of love, the Miami cops were kicking ass, man. I got to give them credit. They were lumping some people up. and the weather, and I'm getting older in my years, maybe today Miami, but I love them both.
Do you think that Miami has more political will to do policing than New York City does? Because that's a big part of it.
Yes, I think the elected officials down there do. Like, look, our city council in New York is insane. If Mamdani gets in, I'm terrified what happens. Down there, you still have enough. Look, the Cubans don't play, man. There's still enough love on police that they will support the cops down there for a while. I mean, at some point, the politics might change, but who knows?
Yeah.
You know what Pete well said? If we could go back to the 80s and the 90s, the way we did it, yeah, there was no better way of policing. They can't. I got a kid on the job. My youngest son's on the job, and I'm hesitant to ever tell him stories about the things that we did 40 years ago, for two reasons. One is I don't want him to do them. He'll be in jail. And two is I don't want him to feel any less of a cop because he doesn't do what his father did.
Yeah. Well, I wish we had the technology back then that we have today. I would love to have those cameras.
Let's go back in time. First off, there was someone put in the chat, bring back the Coca-Cola. Whoever that person is, I want to give him a hug. But let's recall the early days when policing isn't always pretty. And when people use force against you, we used force to get them under control. And how many times did you bring a guy in front of the desk officer who was lumped up justifiably? Because I never believed in hitting a guy. Once the cuffs were on, I was always fair. Right. And the desk officer would look at that person and say, "What happened to you, son?" And the person, regardless of color, regardless of age, unless we didn't lump up, "Sir, I fell."
There you go.
There was a respect between the bad guys and the cops back then, right? That is gone. There was a respect. It was almost like, all right, look, I know it's my job if I'm a bad guy to run from you, and I know that your job is to catch me. If you catch me and I struggle a little bit with you, I'm going to get tuned up. They accepted that. Now that those days are gone, I kind of miss that kind of mutual respect between the bad guys and the good guys.
So let me carve out this conversation a little bit for the audience. Again, reminding everybody coming back from IACP yesterday, I happened to run into two great friends of ours, George, Detective First Grades, Mike Prate and Chris Scandol, and we had this very conversation about use of force. And what we all agreed on, bottom line was, regardless of race, regardless of color, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of sex, gender, age, anything, every single time we ever put handcuffs on anybody was based on the behavior of the other person.
Absolutely.
And when the cuffs went on, the fighting stopped, period.
And that was it. So let's be clear about that. And Chris even said it. He goes, actually, the white guy got a little extra business.
No, there you go.
You know what I mean?
To add to the chief's point with the technology. So we're at Ken Taub's retirement party. Ken was the chief of the Homicide Bureau down in the DA's office. And this guy, Danny Farrell, was roasting him. And he looked at all the DAs sitting in the audience, and he looked at them. He said, how the hell did you people, how do you lose a case? You have Ring cameras, you have video, you have cell phones. He said, you know what I had? I had Farbach and Slag in an interview room. Farbach wrote out the confession and the guy signed it. That's the evidence that I had.
No. All right. So, Chief Mario DeLeo, whoever that is, welcome.
Slow right down. Mario DeLeo is a hell of a sergeant, probably one of the best I've ever seen.
All right.
When he worked for me in Manhattan Detectives, he's just a home run. And he really, in the 2-3 squad, or 2-5, I forget Mario, I'm sorry for that, not remembering. He was just amazing boss, amazing guy. And Electric Zoo is how I met Mario DeLeo. I hope he's laughing right now because that's how I saw his value. He was all over it. Yeah. So great guy. How you doing, Mario?
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to start wrapping up. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes in. So Pete, we're plugging Pete's book all the time. Deadly Path, Pete, it's all yours right now. How's things going?
There's some Hollywood interest. We'll see if that happens. I mean, they can take forever or turn their backs and walk away. You never know. But yeah, it's about the Fast and Furious scandal. I was out there in Phoenix and saw some things happening. I complained about it, told them they were going down the wrong path. They ignored me. Then a Border Patrol agent got killed. And the rest is history, man. You know, my Bronx beat cop values against the bullshit that was happening in Phoenix. I had to do the right thing. And that just outlined everything that happened out there.
Yeah. All right. And then, so the Sal Greco show, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 105. We got one coming up this Thursday. There was one today. I missed it. I was on a plane, but go back and watch the Sal Greco show every Tuesdays and Thursdays, 105. And then tomorrow morning, 8:05 is the Finest Unfiltered with John, Eric, and Marlon. I don't have their pre-show, so I'm not sure exactly what the topic is. However, at 5:05 p.m., Inspector Ron Layson, and Deputy Chief Rob Lukash. Can the NYPD arrest federal agents? Apparently, Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman is asking the NYPD to start arresting federal agents for violating New York State and New York City laws, and they will also discuss the Court of Appeals' Ninth Circuit decision to uphold President Trump's authority to deploy the National Guard troops and provide the latest updates on the mayoral race in New York City. So get that at 5:05 Eastern Time tomorrow. With that, please follow the Finest Unfiltered on YouTube, at Finest Unfiltered, X, LinkedIn. Pete and I are most prominent on LinkedIn. That's where you'll find us the most. If you want to follow what we're doing and what we're up to, we're constantly sharing information and articles that support the community and support the cops who protect that community, pro law enforcement, pro no crime. And then follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Ten-Four Tavern. So, gentlemen, with that, it's time to wrap it up. I'm going to go around the horn. Great show, Chief. Really appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun, a lot of entertaining. Heavy's the head that wears the crown. You were the chief of detectives, some really big capers. I'm sure it took a lot out of you, your family. We all have our stories as regards to that. I'm going to go to Pete because that stuff does wear on us. So Pete's got a tagline. So go, and then let Bobby and then George wrap it up.
Yeah, man. My saying is, it's okay to not be okay. We all seen things that scar us, and it is what it is. But it's not okay to not do something about it. So if you're in a bad spot, reach out to somebody, your job, if they have a counseling section, the clergy. Just don't sit in darkness, man. Get some help. We've all been there. Find your way out. But Chief, honored to have you on the show. We never crossed paths while I was on the job. But kind of regret that. It would have been nice. I've heard great things. Your reputation is outstanding, and you're a true leader. So thank you for coming. And George, good chatting with you. I don't think we've crossed paths either. I hear all these things about Brooklyn, but I'm a Bronx guy. I don't understand that Brooklyn stuff. So good to meet you, brother.
Very good to meet you.
All right, Chief, it's your wrap.
Just listen. We're all survivors of the 9/11 attack on this city. So remember to get your blood pulled at least 2 or 3 times a year and have checked for anything cancerous. Stay on top of that. Stay out in front of it. I get it done all the time. And I tell you what, stay healthy and keep yourselves healthy because we earned our retirements. We talked a lot what we did today, what we did in our careers, and it's important to understand that it's really we want to live into our 90s, man, because we earned it. So stay on top of it. Go to your doctor. Live right. Eat right. And get your blood checked and get all kinds of screenings that you deserve to get, and stay healthy. And this way we can keep talking about this for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
It should be a lot of fun.
All right, I'm going to wrap. I'm going to make one final statement, then I'm going to go right into the outro. This podcast is positive. We talk about great capers, great stories, great police work. We're on here. We bring good people. We're having laughs. We're having fun. All right. We're not diving in too deep. We're not pointing fingers. We're not bashing anybody. You start bringing kids into the conversation, you got a problem. You know what? You go get some help. All right, everybody. Take care, everybody. Love you. Please be safe. Take care of your stuff. Take care of your business. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family.